Chapter 2336. Supu was shocked. He was also a famous warrior of the Taiyin tribe. Just as he was about to take out his scimitar, he suddenly saw the delicate and pretty face in front of him. He hurriedly put away his scimitar and grabbed her with a face full of surprise. "Ah, Xiao, it's you." The girl in front of him was naturally Li Wenxiu. Noticing his excitement, she was also very happy, but she still calmly withdrew her hand. "You and our man are always so lovey-dovey. How could you possibly think of me?" "Oh man, I..." Supu awkwardly scratched the back of his head, not knowing what to say. Li Wenxiu faintly sighed. "I know your father hates Han people the most, so you don't need to explain anything to me. This time, I came here to save you." "Save me?" Supu was stunned, looking at her with some confusion. Li Wenxiu said, "Do you remember the time when we were chased by Chun Yuanda and then fell into the hands of another evil person? How could I forget that?" Supu felt a chill on his back when he thought about it. Li Wenxiu asked, "Then why are you still with that evil person, as if nothing happened?" "That evil person?" Supu was stunned. "Isn't he already dead, killed by that great Han hero? I didn't expect that there would be such a great hero among the Han people. His means are too high. He is simply like a god." "That young master is indeed powerful." Recalling the elegant demeanor of that person, Li Wenxiu's eyes also lit up. "But now I want to talk about the evil person who was killed. Now he has appeared again. Is the donging person who was with you?" "I asked the people in the tribe about it. It seems to be called the Shui West sect." "It's him," Supu exclaimed. "No wonder I felt that he was a bit familiar. I even asked him at that time, but he directly denied it. You also know that Yuhan people all look the same, so I didn't think too much about it." A trace of bitterness flashed through Li Wenxiu's heart. Could it be that in his eyes, I am no different from other Han women? But she was not jealous at this juncture. She hurriedly gathered her thoughts and said, "It is him. I will not mistake him." Supu also had some doubts in his heart. Now that Li Wenxiu was a Han, she could naturally tell the difference between Han and Li Wenxiu. Hearing her affirmation, how could he still have any doubts in his heart? For a moment, he could not help but feel as if his soul was about to leave his body. That person was clearly dead. How could he suddenly come back to life? Could it be that he is the legendary desert devil? Li Wenxiu rolled her eyes. She didn't know what was going on, but everyone in the Taiyin tribe was afraid of the legendary demon. Her father was a member of the Imperial College, so he had been influenced by the 4 books and 5 classics since he was a child. Naturally, he didn't believe that there was a demon in this world. "That's just a disguise." "Human." Supu opened his mouth in surprise. Li Wenxiu nodded and looked in the direction of the Shueyuan master in the camp. "This person is pretending to be the Shueyuan master. Obviously, he has ulterior motives. Moreover, you have exposed that you have witnessed his death. Although he managed to deal with it, he will definitely not be at ease. In order to not expose his identity, he will most likely choose to kill you to silence you." Supu was furious. "My machete is not to be trifled with." Li Wenxiu carefully considered her words and said, "Although you are considered brave in the tribe, what you have learned is more suitable for fighting on the battlefield. I am afraid that you're not as good as those martial arts masters in Jianghu." Supu was instantly discouraged. "Yes, when I faced the Shueyuan master last time, I had no way to fight back." Li Wenxiu said, "Since this person can pretend to be the Shueyuan master, he must be as strong as him. We can't fight him head-on." Supu suggested, "Why don't I go and expose his identity? There are thousands of warriors on the Mongolian side. No matter how strong he is, can he fight against thousands of soldiers and horses?" Li Wenxiu hesitated for a moment, but still shook her head. "No. What if he is with those Mongolians? Think about it. They have been together for a long time. How can they not see through him? If we rashly expose him, we will be in great danger. This won't work, that won't work. Then what should we do?" Supu suddenly became anxious. "Don't worry. In the next few days, you will be in the light, and I will be in the dark. We will secretly investigate and see if the Mongolians know his identity." When Li Wenxiu said this, she felt a little guilty. She came up with this idea not without her own considerations. In this way, she could often meet Supu. Supu didn't worry about it. That's a good idea. Then you have to hide yourself. Don't let the Mongolians find you. It is said that the Mongolians love to take beautiful Han girls like you as their wives. Li Wenxiu stared at him with a faint smile. What? You don't want to? Supu's face became hot. He blurted out, You are my friend. Of course, I don't want to see that happen. Just friends. Li Wenxiu's heart flashed a trace of sadness. She hurriedly said, You should go back. If you stay out for too long, people will suspect you. Well, take care of yourself. Supu poked his head out of the sand dune and looked around. Seeing that no one was paying attention to him, he quietly returned to the camp. Over the next few days, the group went deeper and deeper into the desert. In the end, even Sansur did not come to these places. Bora, who had to divide his cavalry scouts into several groups to scout around, while the main force set up camp and rested. When Song Qingshu was meditating, he suddenly felt something. He opened his eyes and found a beautiful girl hesitating near him. Her face was full of hesitation. Miss Amon, what can I do for you? Song Qingshu was a little curious. Amon gently bit her lip and said hesitantly, I have a lot of things on my mind. I don't know how to say them, but I can't find anyone else to talk to. Song Qingshu chuckled. Aren't you very close to Supu? Why don't you tell him? Amon suddenly became anxious. I can't tell him. Song Qingshu suddenly understood. It seems that the things on your mind are related to Supu. This little girl was really naive. She probably thought that he was a good person because he had said a few words to them and invited them to see the sea. Sigh. If it were someone else, she probably wouldn't even know that she had been sold. Amon's pretty face blushed. She made an almost inaudible sound. It's just that he has suddenly become mysterious these days. Many times when I talk to him, he's absent-minded. Sometimes he sneaks around and avoids me. I don't know which girl he's meeting with. Song Qingshu curiously asked, Are there any other girls in this group besides you? Amon shook her head. Although I didn't see him, I can feel that he must have gone to see one of them. So you're jealous? Song Qingshu laughed. In fact, he had also noticed that someone was spying on them these days. However, the other party's martial arts were weak, so he didn't care at all. Chapter 23:37. Hearing her words, Song Qingshu thought that if the men from the Central Plains knew about this, they would be so happy that they would cry. However, on second thought, it seemed that the men from the Central Plains also had this benefit in this era. It was just that 3 women were seen. Once there were more women, there would inevitably be infighting and scheming. Previously, there was only Shuang, who didn't mind the man having another wife. Now there was Man. I wonder how Shuang is doing now. Song Qingshu sighed inwardly. Shuang went back to Hu province to keep watch for the Zhuang family. It was a pity that he couldn't find the time to visit her. Are you listening to me? A soft and sweet voice interrupted his thoughts. He saw a man tilting her head and looking at him. Her lips were slightly upturned. She was obviously a little dissatisfied. Song Qingshu smiled and explained, Doesn't this prove that Supu cares about you and values you? If he wasn't afraid that you would be unhappy, why would he be so careful? But I'm clearly not that kind of person. It still shows that he doesn't really understand me. Man bit her lip. She was obviously very sad. Song Qingshu couldn't help but sigh that women were really naturally sentimental. Even such a kind girl would seem a little pretentious when she was conflicted. Man, why did you come here alone? Supu's voice sounded. He quickly ran over. I just have something to say to him. Man explained. What's there to say between you and him? Supu didn't explain. He pulled her and ran away. Man exclaimed. She could only turn around and smile apologetically. Song Qingshu didn't mind. It was normal for young men to get jealous easily. They would be very sensitive to guard against anyone of the opposite sex who approached their lover. However, he couldn't ignore what Man said. The woman that Supu secretly met was most likely Li Wenxiu. Supu was easy to fool, but Li Wenxiu recognized him. If she ran out and exposed his identity, it would be really troublesome. However, from what Man said, it was speculated that Li Wenxiu should have appeared long ago. So why did they not expose him? This was, after all, a hidden danger. Song Qingshu got up and decided to find Li Wenxiu and find a way to solve this hidden danger. Meanwhile, Amon was dragged away by Sup to a secluded place. Sup hurriedly asked, "Why are you looking for that person?" "I want to talk to someone." Amon felt a little guilty and didn't dare to look at him. "Then why can't you come to me?" Supu was anxious. Amon turned his face away and said with a hint of resentment, "But I can't find you often." Supu held his breath. Only then did he remember that he often went to look for Li Wenxio these days, so his whereabouts were a little uncertain. He had no choice but to say, "Even if you can't find me, you still have Sansel and Camel. Why are you looking for that person?" Armand looked at him strangely. "Didn't you hate it when I was with Sansur?" She was Churku's daughter, and Sansur was Churku's apprentice. The two of them were childhood sweethearts, and Sansur had once pursued her passionately. Later, he lost to Supu and had no choice but to withdraw. However, Supu had always been wary of this former rival in love. Supu said, "The situation is a little different this time. Anyway, you can't go to that Shuewen master again. He's not a good person." Amon was a little angry. "Supu, it's not good to speak ill of people behind their backs. And I think he's a good person, not like what you said." "He is." Supu was anxious and almost said that the person was a fake, but suddenly remembered Li Wenxio's warning. He thought that Amon was simple and kind. If she knew the whole story, she would definitely show a flaw in front of that person. If the person found out in advance, it would be troublesome. So it was not convenient for him to explain. So he said in a low, muffled voice, "I don't care. Anyway, you can't go to see him again." He was a bit hot-tempered, and the more he said, the angrier he became. He snorted and left. Amon looked at his back and couldn't help but feel a little sad. "You're jealous and sad when I see an elder. Then why don't you think of me when you see other women?" She only thought that he was angry because of jealousy. After all, Supu was famous for being a vinegar jar these years. He guarded against any man who wanted to get close to her like a thief. She was used to it. Supu left angrily and went to the place where he and Li Wenxio had agreed to meet. Before Li Wenxio said anything, he said directly, "I can't stand it anymore. I'm going to expose that Shuewen master's identity." "What's wrong with you?" Li Wenxio saw that he was in a bad state and hurriedly asked. Supu said angrily, "That person is really good at disguising. He actually pretended to be a good person to get close to Amon. Amon is too kind to really think of him as a friend. This person must have bad intentions. I'm worried that after a long time, Amon will really be deceived by him." So it was because of Amon, Li Wenxio faintly sighed in her heart and immediately replied, "That's fine. During this period of time, we've been investigating in a roundabout way. It seems that the Mongolians don't seem to know that he is a fake. We'll find a way to inform the Mongolians and let them deal with them. You won't have this chance." At this moment, a cold voice came from behind. The two of them were startled and hurriedly turned around. They saw a woman in an apricot-yellow Taoist robe, standing not far away with a horsetail whisk in her hand. Although her tone was cold, her voice was soft and sweet. Her manner was charming. Coupled with her bright eyes, white teeth, and fair skin, she was really an outstanding beauty. Supu couldn't help but exclaim, "Are all the women of the Han family so beautiful?" Li Wenxio thought in her heart, "I've never seen you praise my appearance before. But today, seeing a strange woman, you actually got excited." However, she also had to admit that although this woman was dressed as a Taoist nun, her skin was delicate and her appearance was gentle and beautiful. Perhaps there were only a few young ladies in Lin, and who could compare with her? Just as he was about to ask about her identity, the Taoist nun coldly stared at Supu. "You're courting death." Over the years, many evil people in Jianghu inevitably fell in love with her beauty. But if they showed any evil thoughts in their expressions, they would be killed by her palm. Now, how could she be an exception to a young man of a different race? Li Wenxio was shocked and hurriedly pushed Supu aside. She stretched out her palm to meet the attack. When their hands met, she let out a muffled groan and flew back a few steps. A trace of blood had already spilled out from the corner of her mouth. Obviously, she had suffered a serious internal injury. "Shio, what's wrong with you?" Supu hurriedly went to check. seeing that she was injured and vomited blood. He couldn't help but be furious. He pulled out his waist knife and was about to rush over. Li Wenxiu hurriedly pulled him back. No, you're no match for her. She had already found that her right palm was numb and had lost feeling. Obviously, she had been poisoned at the moment when they fought. However, the Taoist nun didn't continue to attack. Instead, she looked at her with great interest. You're Xiao? What's your surname? My surname is Li. Li Wenxiu was a little puzzled as to why the other would suddenly ask such an irrelevant question. But now that the enemy was strong and she was weak, she had to stall for time and see if she could think of a way to deal with it. Surname Li. The Taoist nun's expression became more and more strange. Are you willing to die for this young man of a different race? Chapter 23:38. The Taoist nun chuckled. But I don't think this boy will die for you. You're injured like this, but he still doesn't dare to risk his life. Su Pu couldn't bear it any longer. With a roar, he brandished his saber and rushed over. Unfortunately, the Taoist nun leaned to the side and tripped him with her foot. He lost his balance and fell heavily to the ground. Just as he was about to get up, the nun stepped on his back. Su Pu's face turned red. He could see that the other foot of the Taoist nun was only as small as a 3-inch golden lotus, but it was this foot that was stepping on his back. He, the bravest among the youths in the tribe, couldn't get up no matter how hard he tried. The beautiful Taoist nun's face was amiable, but her words were extremely cold-blooded. I'm in a good mood today. I only want to kill one person. You two choose who will die and who will live. I offended you. If you want to kill me, it has nothing to do with her. Su Pu's hands were tightly pressed against the ground, but he still couldn't get up. Oh, you are willing to die for her. The beautiful Taoist nun teased. Of course I'm willing. Su Pu suddenly thought of Aman. He was going to spend the rest of his life with Aman. If he died here, the beautiful Taoist nun snorted. You really are a heartless thing. She raised a horsetail whisk in her hand and was about to sweep it at his head. Li Wenxiu exclaimed, No. The beautiful Taoist nun stopped halfway and frowned. This person is saying sweet things to you in front of you, but he is not even willing to die for you. You still want to save him? Li Wenxiu smiled sadly. Senior, you misunderstood me. We are not lovers, just friends. He has someone else in his heart. How can he abandon his lover for an unrelated woman like me? Su Pu's face turned red. Ah, Xiao. But he didn't know how to explain. Who is his sweetheart? I'll kill her along the way to help the two of you. The beautiful Taoist nun said. Su Pu and Li Wenxiu were shocked and hurriedly refused. Love is something that can't be forced. If you have to rely on harming others to barely keep your lover by your side, what's the point? Hearing her words, the beautiful Taoist nun was stunned and muttered to herself. Love is something that cannot be forced. Li Wenxiu saw that her expression alternated between anger and sadness, as if she was deeply touched. She took the opportunity to say, It seems that Senior is also a sentimental person. Please forgive me. His gaze fell on Su Pu's leg, thinking that he couldn't say that he was lifting his leg. Senior, am I very old? The beautiful Taoist nun's tone was not kind, but she moved her feet away and hurried over to help Su Pu up. Su Pu subconsciously grabbed his machete, but when he thought of his opponent's martial arts, he didn't dare to act recklessly. Do you know why I let you go? The beautiful Taoist nun put away her horsetail whisk. Her Taoist robe fluttered in the cold desert wind, making her look like a water fairy gently trembling in the wind. Li Wenxiu secretly sighed at how beautiful this person was. She replied, I'm sure Mrs. Cold on the outside, but warm on the inside. Deep down, you're actually a kind person. Kind? A sneer flashed across the beautiful Taoist nun's face. If those who knew her in the Wulin of the Central Plains knew that someone described her as kind, they would probably laugh their heads off. You don't have to flatter me. The reason why I let you go is just that I'm your elder sister. Elder sister? Li Wenxiu was a little confused. My elder sister has married into the Jia's mansion. Have you mistaken me for someone else? Are you Li Wenxiu? The beautiful Taoist nun asked. Li Wenxiu nodded subconsciously. How do you know? That's even more correct. The beautiful Taoist nun said, I'm your elder sister. I got lost in the temple fair when I was a child. Fortunately, my master later rescued me and took me in. Not long ago, I came to Lin and to recognize my ancestors. Elder sister? Li Wenxiu was stunned. She remembered that there was indeed such an elder sister in her family who got lost when she was a child. She had always been a knot in her parents' hearts. The beautiful Taoist nun nodded and told her everything about her origin and the Li's mansion in Linen. She was Li Macho, the Scarlet Serpent Fairy. At that time, Song Qing-shu asked her to stay at Blackwood Cliff to monitor the Sun Moon sect. As a result, Ren Wuxing moved to Lin and with the elites of the sect to take care of Ren Yingying. Naturally, there was no need for her to stay at Blackwood Cliff. Moreover, after receiving Song Qing-shu's message and knowing her origin, she went to Lin with him and met her father Li Shouzhong and sister Li Wan. Ren Yingying organized the Prince Qi's mansion in Lin. When she learned that Song Qing-shu went north from Xixia to Mongolia, she was worried that he was surrounded by strong enemies. Unfortunately, she was unable to attend to him at two places at once, so she thought of sending a capable person to the north to help him. It just so happened that Li Macho learned that her third sister, Li Wenxiu, had been lingering in the desert these years and had not returned home. Her parents had always missed her, so she took the initiative to come to the desert. Ren Yingying considered that she had run amok in Jianghu under the name of Scarlet Serpent Fairy. Whether it was martial arts or intelligence, she was the best choice. Naturally, she was very happy to agree. Thinking of the way Ren Yingying looked at her and the words she said to her before she left, Li Macho felt a little uncomfortable. She wondered if she had misunderstood something. You really are the elder sister. Li Wenxiu couldn't help but feel happy. Since she was a child, she had often seen her mother wash her face with tears. Now that she knew that she had returned safely and was so beautiful and capable, how could she not be happy? In addition, she had been alone in the desert all these years. Now that she had suddenly met her family, tears flowed unconsciously. Supu was stunned on the side. He never thought that this beautiful Taoist nun would be Xiu's elder sister. His eyes swept over Li Macho's soft waist, and he couldn't help blushing. Her elder sister seems to be even more beautiful than Aman. Actually, this was completely his misconception. Aman and Li Macho were similar in appearance, but Aman and Li Wenxiu had not completely grown up yet. Li Macho was currently at the peak of a woman's maturity. Adding in the fact that her waist was thin and her chest was high, she naturally revealed the charm of a mature woman. This was a fatal attraction to a young man full of vigor. In the entire tribe, only Elysian had this kind of beauty and mature charm, but the other side was Aman's mother. Normally, he would not think in that direction, so seeing Li Macho for the first time gave him such a big shock. But he immediately thought of his miserable state after being taught a lesson by the other side, and quickly looked away. He was worried that he would be beaten by her again. Where would he put his face? Li Macho slightly knit her brows as she looked at him. If she met a man that looked at her like this in Jianghu, she would have already dug his eyes out. But thinking that he was her little sister's friend, and that her little sister seemed to have feelings for him, she could only secretly suppress this thought. Chapter 23:39. That person. Li Macho hesitated for a moment, choosing her words carefully. I know that person. The reason why he disguised himself as a member of the Water Moon sect is because he has something very important to do, so don't ruin it. Li Wenxiu grabbed her arm and asked, You look like you want to say something. Is that person my brother-in-law? Li Macho was furious. What brother-in-law? Don't talk nonsense. The person who could be your brother-in-law died 16 years ago. Li Wenxiu stuck out her tongue and thought that there were many stories hidden in this. She had to find a chance to ask about it. However, is our Li family poisonous? Both of our brothers-in-law died young. Can I escape this fate? He subconsciously glanced at Su Pu and sighed inwardly. His originally joyful heart was tainted with a tinge of gloom. Since he is my friend, then don't worry. I was afraid that he had ulterior motives and would kill us. That's why I was thinking of ways to deal with him. Li Wenxiu said. Li Macho nodded and then looked at Su Pu and asked, Hey kid, Since you are from the Taiyin tribe, do you know where the treasure of the Gaochang country is? Do you have any legends about it? She also knew that Su Pu probably didn't know the exact location of the treasure. Otherwise, their tribe would have already taken it out. Why would they continue to graze? But the Taiyin tribe had lived nearby for generations, so there should be legends about it. She wanted to see if she could infer anything from it. Seeing this mature and beautiful woman take the initiative to ask, Su Pu couldn't help but feel a little excited. He hurriedly answered, "Our tribe does have legends about the treasure of the Gaochang country. But after so many years, no one knows where the treasure is. We are not sure if the treasure really exists." Noticing the disappointment on Limacho's face, Su Pu hurriedly continued, "But our tribe has another legend. There is a 1,000-year-old demon hidden in the depths of the desert. Anyone who touches it will die silently. That's why no one has ever come back alive from the depths of the desert." "Demon?" Limacho sneered. "It seems that the treasure is in the depths of the desert. Someone doesn't want others to get close, so they spread the rumor of a demon. In the martial arts world of the Central Plains, she was a demoness who made people tremble with fear at the mention of her name. If a demon ran into her, it was hard to say who would be afraid of whom." At this moment, Li Wenxiu suddenly said, shyly, Actually, I have a map of the Gaochang nation's treasure." Limacho looked at her in confusion. Li Wenxiu told Limacho how she got the treasure map. Limacho's expression became more and more strange. "You said that the person who saved you was the Golden Snake King, Song Qingshu?" "Yes." Li Wenxiu nodded subconsciously. "By the way, he said he was your friend. Do you know him?" "We don't just know each other." Limacho's mind replayed the scene of him teaching her the Jade Maiden Heart Sutra. She couldn't help but blush. Su Pu's eyes widened as he watched. After a while, Limacho came to her senses. Seeing her sister looking at her curiously, she couldn't help but blush. She hurriedly said, "Show me the treasure map." Li Wenxiu grunted and took out a light yellow handkerchief from her bosom. She wasn't interested in any treasure, not to mention that the person in front of her was her sister. How would she hide anything? "Sister, I've looked at this treasure map many times, but no matter how I look at it, it looks like an ordinary handkerchief. I can't see anything special about it." Limacho took it and looked at it. She could feel that the handkerchief was made of silk. There were some faint patterns of mountains and rivers embroidered on it. The terrain looked like the desert, but it was too blurry to see clearly. There are no signs on it, so it really did look like an ordinary handkerchief embroidered with patterns. "You're the daughter of an official after all, so you don't know much about the ways of the martial arts world." Limacho rubbed her finger on the pattern for a while and understood. She looked at Su Pu. "Oh, come here. Miss, you called me?" Su Pu's heartbeat suddenly sped up. Although he knew that the other was Li Wenxiu's sister and shouldn't have those kinds of thoughts, her mature beauty and charm that was completely different from the women in the tribe had a fatal attraction to him. "Give me your hand," Limacho said lightly. Su Pu subconsciously stretched out his hand. His Adam's apple couldn't help but slide up and down. He noticed that the other's slender fingers had also come over. His heart beat wildly. Does she want to hold my hand? But Li Wenxiu is still here, and I can't let him on down. While he was struggling, he suddenly felt a pain in his fingers. He subconsciously wanted to pull back, but the other's hand was tightly held. It was strange. Limacho's wrist was thin and white, as if it would break if he used a little more force. But it was such a slender, snow-white arm that grabbed his much thicker hand that felt like it was being held by a vice. He couldn't move an inch no matter how much strength he used. "Sister, what are you doing?" Li Wenxiu's beautiful face paled, and she hurriedly stepped forward to stop her. "I'm just borrowing a little of his blood." "What are you panicking about?" Limacho said coldly. "If it was someone else looking at me like that, I would have taken his life long ago. This time, I'm letting him go because of you." Su Pu's face was already red with embarrassment. "Xiu, I'm fine. Don't worry." At the same time, he thought to himself, this woman is beautiful, but too fierce. She's not as gentle and understanding as Amon. She can't even compare to Xiu. Li Wenxiu originally wanted to say something, but her attention was quickly attracted by the changes on the handkerchief. She saw that when Su Pu's blood dripped onto it, the originally somewhat blurry mountain and desert patterns on the handkerchief became clearer. What was even more amazing was that there were suddenly some red lines. At a glance, it was obvious that they were treasure-hunting paths. How can this be? It's amazing, Li Wenxiu muttered to herself. Su Pu was also dumbfounded. Seeing that there was enough blood, Li Macho threw his hand to the side and explained, "This handkerchief is made of silk. The lines on the handkerchief are woven with cotton thread in the middle. The silk is yellow, and the cotton thread is also yellow. Normally, you can't see it, but when it's stained with blood, the cotton thread absorbs more blood than the silk, so it's easy to tell. This is indeed the map to the depths of the desert. So there really is a treasure." Su Pu grew up in the tribe, so he was very familiar with the surrounding terrain. With one look, he knew that the treasure map was real. Do you Taiyin tribe people want the treasure to be found by the Mongolians? Li Macho stared at him, a trace of killing intent hidden deep in her eyes. If he was close to the Mongolians, then she would rather make her sister sad and take his life so that the Mongolians wouldn't know about the treasure map. Of course not, Su Pu said with hatred. The Mongolians have enslaved us for many years, and from time to time, they ask for tribute. This time, when they heard that they want our tribe to give up 30 beautiful girls, I'm angry just thinking about it. These days, with the Mongolians, they were used to their arrogance. They didn't care about the Taiyin tribe at all and treated them like slaves. That's good. Li Macho let out a sigh of relief. She didn't want to have a falling out with her sister. Chapter 2340. That's right. It's not realistic to hope that the Mongolians won't find the treasure, Li Macho thought for a moment and said, I think the ruins of the Gaochang kingdom are like a labyrinth. We can use the complicated terrain to deal with the Mongolians. Xiao, you and I will go to the labyrinth and prepare for the unexpected Mongolian guests. Li Wenxiu was reluctant to leave Su Pu at first, but when she thought of how close he was to Man every day, she felt uncomfortable seeing him like that. So she agreed. Su Pu panicked. No, that devil is most likely hiding in the labyrinth. Besides, there are only two of you. No matter how well you plan, how are you going to deal with so many Mongolian soldiers? Li Wenxiu was also uncertain, but Li Macho said, I'll take care of the devil. As for the Mongolian army, it's not a big deal. No matter how strong an army is, it can't compare to the power of heaven and earth. Since the treasure of the Gaochang kingdom is buried in the labyrinth, there must be a lot of traps. I'll go and familiarize myself with the layout. Even if we can't kill all of them, they won't be able to do anything in the terrain. Seeing that they had made up their minds, Su Pu said, Then you must be careful. Li Wenxiu was reluctant to leave, but Li Macho became impatient and pulled her away. After they left, Li Macho frowned and said to her sister, What's going on between you two? Li Wenxiu blushed and said awkwardly, What do you mean what's going on? Li Macho snorted. Even a blind man can see your feelings for him. He has feelings for you too. Then why is your relationship so strange? Li Wenxiu smiled sadly. He already has someone in his heart. The one called Man? Li Macho's face turned cold. I'll go and kill her. Don't worry, I'll do it without anyone knowing. I won't let Su Pu get suspicious and blame you. Li Wenxiu panicked. No, Su Pu and I are only fated to be together. How can I kill someone else for my own selfish reasons? I won't be able to live in peace for the rest of my life. Then you'll bear all the pain for the rest of your life alone? When Li Macho saw their relationship, it was as if she saw her own shadow. Don't you want to be with the one you love? Time will make everything go away. If I can be with Su Pu, that would be great. But if I have to kill someone to be happy, I won't be happy. Li Wenxiu paused and said slowly, I don't like it. Although her voice was not loud, Li Macho could feel the determination in it. She thought of how she had made a completely different choice from her a few years ago, but the person she loved still did not return her side. She could not help but feel touched. What is love in the world? Looking at her sister's lonely back, Li Wenxiu blinked her eyes. She keenly sensed that her sister seemed to be hiding a love wound. She hurriedly chased after her and chatted with her about the things that happened after they were separated all these years. At the same time, She tried to find out what happened to her. Meanwhile, in the Mongolian camp, Song Qing-shu heard about Supu's unusual behavior from Amon. So he patrolled around the camp and happened to bump into Supu, who had just returned. He asked tentatively, "Who did you see just now?" Song Qing-shu was confused. Supu's reaction was different from what he expected. If he met Li Wenxiu, he would definitely talk to her. But he didn't guard against her at all. Song Qing-shu was a little confused. His reaction was a little different from what he had imagined. If he had met with Li Wenxiu, he would definitely have discussed how to deal with him. However, when he felt his body's reaction just now, he did not put up any guard at all. Unfortunately, he couldn't ask her directly. Song Qing-shu hesitated, then quickly searched around the camp. To his surprise, Li Wenxiu was nowhere to be found, and there was nothing suspicious. Unine ebook Who did Supu go to see? Song Qing-shu suppressed the doubts in his heart and secretly paid attention to Supu's every move. But to his surprise, Supu did not show any abnormalities. Could it be that all of this was just Amon's illusion? Not long after, the scouts sent by Boer came back one after another. He combined all kinds of information and chose a direction with Wochen. The army continued to march. After a few more hours, the sky was already dark, even though it was still early. Supu and the others saw this and hurriedly said, "A sandstorm is coming. We can't keep going." Wochen and Boer had followed Temujin in many battles and had naturally seen the power of sandstorms. They didn't dare to show off and immediately ordered their troops to dig holes in the sand dunes. They also tied up their horses and waited for the sandstorm to pass before continuing on their journey. Song Qing-shu looked at the dark sky and couldn't help but sigh at the power of heaven and earth. No matter how skilled a person was, they would never be able to match it. With Shui Yue's current status, he naturally didn't need to do anything himself. He had the soldiers dig the holes for him and hid with Wochen, Boer, Wu Sun, and the others. After Boer returned with his troops, he slapped Wu Sun on the shoulder. "Shaman, why have you been so quiet since we entered the desert?" Wu Sun was in the middle of expelling the poison from his body. The slap almost caused the poison to flow backwards and attack his heart. He glared at the shaman, but unfortunately, he couldn't do anything and could only say, "I'm just meditating." Wochen nodded and smiled. Having a shaman with us is indeed very reassuring. All these years, the Khan has been fighting in the north and south. It's always been us ambushing others, not others ambushing us. This is all thanks to the shaman's psychic scouting ability. Song Qing-shu raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect Wu Sun's psychic abilities to be used in this way. It sounded like a radar that could detect any abnormalities in a large area. The only thing he didn't know was how far his detection range was. "There's no sign of human habitation within 1,000 miles of this desert," Boer said disapprovingly. "What's there to scout? Not to mention, who can hide from such a large sandstorm? There's no need for the shaman to scout. Come, let's drink together." Wu Sun replied, "It's better for me to scout. You can drink by yourselves, don't worry about me." Song Qing-shu laughed inwardly. This guy seemed to have not completely expelled the poison from his body, so he could only use this excuse to deceive others. In his current state, it would be strange if he could scout. Hearing this, Boer didn't want to disturb him anymore. He carried his wineskin and came to Aman's side. "Come, have a drink to warm yourself." Aman moved a little unnaturally to the side. "Thank you, General, but I never drink." At the same time, he looked around for Supu, but Supu had been dragged away by the Mongolian soldiers to teach him how to dig the pit. How can the people of the grassland not drink? It's getting dark soon, and you're wearing thin clothes. You'll definitely feel cold. Boer looked greedily at the beauty of the young girl in front of him. Of course, the two with the highest status in the group were Wochen and Wu Sun, but Wochen was about to marry the princess, so he obviously couldn't flirt with other girls. Wu Sun didn't know what was wrong with him, but he hadn't come looking for Man these days. Could it be that the old man wasn't interested in this kind of young girl and preferred older and more mature ones? Well, it wasn't impossible. After all, with Wu Sun's age, a girl in her 50s or 60s was still a young girl in his eyes. Chapter 2341. Bor swallowed his saliva, but he still snorted with a straight face. Nonsense. Your father, Sulik, and the others all drank before. You deliberately lied to me. Do you think I'm easy to bully? What nonsense. Our longevity, heaven doesn't have such rules. Are you going to drink or not? If you don't drink, you're not giving me face. Bor suddenly glared at her fiercely. Although Amon was kind, her stubbornness was aroused by his words. She raised her small face, but her expression was firm. I won't drink. Bor suddenly became furious. He pinched her face with one hand and poured the wine into her mouth with the other. Amon cried out in alarm and hurriedly used both hands to try to pry him away. But how could a weak little girl like her compare to the strength of a burly general? The only thing she could do was to tightly close her lips and let the other party pour the wine on her mouth and face. Some sparkling things slipped from the corner of her eyes, but it was hard to tell whether they were tears or wine stains. Song Qing-shu furrowed his brows and subconsciously looked for Sup, San-Sir, and the others. Unfortunately, they were nowhere to be seen, most likely because Boru's subordinates had sent them away. Just then, Bor suddenly screamed. He saw Amon stagger behind him, and Bor chased after her in exasperation. Bitch, how dare you bite me? Song Qing-shu had important matters to attend to. He didn't want to meddle in these affairs, but since Amon was hiding behind him, he couldn't bear to let her do as she pleased. He got up and stopped in front of Bor. General, please reconsider. We still need to rely on the Taiyin tribe as our guide. Amon has a special status in their tribe. If we touch her, it is likely that they will turn against us. In any case, those people have never been to this land. What else can they do? Bor suddenly snorted and was about to step forward to catch his prey, but Shui Wezong blocked in front of him like a wall. Does Shui Wezong want to stop me? Bor suddenly said in an awe-inspiring tone. Although the Shuiwe Great Grandmaster was highly skilled in martial arts, he was just a foreign official after all, while Bor was one of the 4 leaders of the Chieshui army. Moreover, the Shuiwe Great Grandmaster had met with that incident in the Western Xia. Everyone in Helen City knew that he had lost the favor of the emperor. So, naturally, he didn't need to worry about anything. Song Qing-shu frowned. Before he could answer, old man Wu Sun, who was not far away, said, Let's get down to business. We have yet to find the treasure. Let's not complicate matters. What a joke. Amon and her daughter, as well as the 30 beauties of the Taiyin tribe, were all in his pocket. Unfortunately, he had not forced the broken needle out of his body, so he could not do anything about it. But it did not mean that he would sit back and watch Borgo lay his hands on the forbidden things he valued. Of course, having lived for such a long time, he had long since become a shrewd person. He would not reveal his own thoughts. Instead, everything was done under the guise of official business, leaving the other party with nothing to say. Borgo was still a little hesitant. Wu Chen also said, It's not too late to do this after we find the treasure. Although he could not do anything to Amon because he wanted to marry the princess, as a man, seeing such a beautiful girl being toyed with by another man in front of him was not a good feeling. Since the others had spoken, he naturally took the opportunity to express his opinion. Borgo could ignore the Shuiwe sect, but he could not ignore the opinions of Wu Chun and Wu Sunday. He could only snort, What a bummer. After that, he returned to his seat in the pit and drank his wine. Only then did old man Wu Sun close his eyes and once again began to force the broken needle out of his body. In order to ease the atmosphere, Wu Chun pulled Borgo to drink with him. Song Qing-shu turned back to look at the weeping beauty and asked, Are you all right? Amon wiped the corner of her eyes and softly said, I'm fine, thank you. She did not know why, but at the critical moment just now, she subconsciously ran behind this person. Although this person looked somewhat strange and perverted, she always felt that he was a good person. Love you, ebook, sure enough. In the end, it was he who blocked the danger for her. Song Qing-shu said, Don't tell Su Pu and the others about what just happened. Why? Amon did not understand why she could not tell her lover about the grievances she had suffered. Song Qing-shu said, You know the temper of Su Pu and the others. They will definitely pull out their scimitars and fight to the death with Borgu. But there are Mongolians around. Borgu does not need to do anything. His subordinates will naturally help to kill them. At that time, Borgu will have even less scruples. Amon blinked her eyes. But aren't we here to help the Mongolians? If they kill people at will, won't the Khan hold them responsible? Song Qingshu secretly sighed. This grassland girl was as innocent as a little white flower, completely unaware of the dangers of the world. He had no choice but to say, Borgu is, after all, a high-ranking general. When the time comes, he can casually kill Su Pu and the others on the charge of murder. It is reasonable and legal, and even if the Khan wants to blame them, he can't do anything. Moreover, is the Khan close to them or to you Taiyan people? Why would he help an outsider like you? I understand. Amon bit her lip and whispered to herself. The Mongolians are really bad. At this time, Su Pu and the others also came back. When they saw Amon leaning against Song Qingshu, their expressions changed greatly. They hurriedly ran over and pulled her aside. How many times have I told you not to get close to him? Amon frowned. Su Pu, you misunderstand. He really is a good person. Su Pu suddenly wrinkled his nose and sniffed near her shoulder. Why do I smell wine on you? You never drink? Did he force you to do it? He glared at Song Qingshu and was about to pull out his saber and rush over. Amon hurriedly stopped him. No, it's not what you think. I just accidentally bumped into someone and the wine in their hand spilled on me. Is that really what happened? Su Pu was a little skeptical, but he knew Amon's temperament. He knew that she never lied, so his anger was mostly gone. Amon kept Song Qingshu's words in mind. In order to protect her lover's life, she did not dare to reveal what had just happened. Borgu and the others snorted and continued to drink with their companions, looking at the young couple whispering to each other, and Su Pu still looking at him warily from time to time. Song Qingshu secretly sighed. This kind of scene had played out countless times in the past thousands of years. When a young couple who had just entered society met an uncle who had a successful career, the jealousy in their hearts would cause the young man to be at a loss. The uncle didn't even need to do anything despicable. He just needed to naturally show his normal side, and the huge contrast between him and the young boyfriend was enough to make the young girlfriend waver. This was not anyone's fault. It was just human nature. Chapter 2342. Enemy Attack. This thought appeared in everyone's mind, and they quickly grabbed their weapons to gather. Why would there be an enemy attack here? Just who is the enemy? How many enemies are there? Many questions appeared in the minds of Wochen, Borchu, and the others, but they still quickly passed down orders. However, the sky was covered in yellow sand, and it was impossible to see where the enemy was. Only the faint sounds of battle could be heard in the sandstorm. Even though the Chieshue soldiers had been through hundreds of battles, they were still beginning to panic. Wochen and Borchu were experienced generals, and they were able to quickly determine the approximate location of the enemy based on the direction in which the warning sounds had disappeared. They quickly gathered their soldiers and deployed their troops in that direction. Unfortunately, they were met with a volley of arrows, and the Mongolian army was instantly thrown into disarray. Fortunately, the Mongolians were experts in mounted archery, and many of their soldiers knocked their arrows and shot them back. Unfortunately, they were currently facing a sandstorm, and not only could they not see the enemy clearly, they were also fighting against the wind, which greatly reduced the power of their mounted arrows. On the other hand, the power of the enemy's arrows was multiplied by the wind. Retreat, retreat. Spread out and circle behind the enemy's flank. Borchu immediately realized that they would definitely lose this battle, and he quickly passed down the order. The greatest advantage of the Mongolians was their mobility. In the past, when they were fighting to the west, they would often defeat many with fewer troops, and they would rely on their great mobility to circle around the enemy's weak flank or pretend to retreat in defeat to lure the enemy in and surround them. Although Borchu was not a top-notch general, he had been by Temujin's side for so many years, and even if he had never eaten pork, he had seen pigs run. But at that moment, a pale yellow figure suddenly rushed out of the sandstorm and stabbed Borchu in the throat. The people around him cried out in alarm, and by the time they were about to go help, his corpse had already fallen to the ground. It was as if the sound of a death drum was beating heavily on the hearts of the Mongolians. Borchu's soldiers finally came to their senses and wanted to rush over to avenge their master. But the yellow figure was like a dragon swinging its tail. She had appeared suddenly and disappeared just as suddenly, quickly disappearing into the sandstorm. Where would they go to find her? It's her. Song Qing-shu, who was nearby, was shocked when he saw this. Even though it was just a glimpse, he had already recognized that the other party was the yellow-clothed Hua Qingtong. Her heroic spirit had left a deep impression on him in the past. Now that he had personally witnessed her elegant demeanor on the battlefield, it was truly breathtaking. It's the people from the Wooden Table Ethics Department. Now that they were in close combat, everyone could clearly see the attire of the attackers. They were camels riding archers, and the riders were all wrapped in layers of black scarves, revealing only their eyes. In addition, they were facing away from the wind, so the sandstorm did not affect them too much. There are also people from Dzungar. Someone also recognized the identity of the other army, and the hearts of the Mongolians immediately sank to the bottom. It should be known that the Wooden Table Ethics Department and the Dzungar Khaganate had caused a lot of trouble for the Mongolians in the western regions over the years. After fighting them for so many years, they naturally knew their strength. If they were surrounded by them now, they would most likely be doomed. Even though Wei-chun kept giving orders in an attempt to salvage the situation, Borchu was the leader of this group of Chieshui troops. He had been killed as soon as the battle began, and the fact that this group had not immediately collapsed was already due to the high quality of the Chieshui troops. However, in the sandstorm, it was as if they were surrounded by enemies from all directions. Without a direct leader, the Chieshui troops quickly fell into a situation where they were separated and surrounded by the enemy. Song Qing-shu could see that the Mongolians had already lost. Of course, he would not help the Mongolians kill the people from the Wooden Table Ethics Department, but he still had to put on a show. In the end, he pretended to be fighting while retreating. Listening to the book in the end, the sandstorm grew stronger. It was almost impossible to see anything beyond a meter. The Mongolians completely collapsed, and many began to flee. Song Qing-shu also took the opportunity to walk to the edge of the battlefield. What surprised him was that he ran into Amon on the way, but she had already been separated from Su Pu and the others. She was tied up by a knight from the Wooden Table Ethics Department and placed on a camel. Obviously, this was how prisoners were treated on the battlefield. This surprised Song Qing-shu. He had thought that the people from the Taiyin tribe had contacted the Wooden Table Ethics Department and the Dzungar Khaganate to organize such an ambush. However, looking at the way the soldiers of the Wooden Table Ethics Department treated Amon, it did not seem like they had discussed this beforehand. Who informed Hua Qingtong? Or has her battlefield acuity really reached such a level that she can accurately grasp the movements of this Mongolian army? While Song Qing-shu was puzzled, the knight from the Wooden Table Ethics Department had already seen him. He only thought that he was a member of the Mongolian army and waved his sword at him. Song Qing-shu leaned to the side, grabbed the knight's wrist, and threw him dozens of feet away. Then, he jumped on the camel and took his place, running to the edge of the battlefield. Now that the battlefield was a mess, no matter how good his martial arts were, he had to guard against cold arrows everywhere. It was better to leave the battlefield as soon as possible. Thank you, uncle. You saved me again. When Amon saw that it was him, she could not help but be pleasantly surprised. Uncle, Song Qing-shu thought that with the appearance of the Shui West sect, he would at most be considered a perverted uncle. This little girl was really silly and sweet. She could even call him uncle. Don't talk. Be careful that the sandstorm doesn't get into your mouth, Song Qing-shu said, and handed her a scarf to wrap around her face. However, Amon did not listen to him. Instead, she continued, Can you go and save Su Pu and the others? Just now, we were separated by the chaotic army. Song Qing-shu directly refused. Do you think I'm a god? Now that there are thousands of soldiers outside, what is the difference between me going and dying? What's more, it's so dark that I can't even see my fingers. It's impossible for me to find them. He wasn't a saint who would take such a big risk for an unrelated man. However, if the person he was saving was Su-Pu and he asked him to save Armin, would he go? Amon looked around. Indeed, there was sandstorm everywhere. Even the sound of fighting could hardly be heard. Looking for people in this situation was tantamount to looking for a needle in a haystack. She could only put her palms together. Allah bless Su-Pu. You must let him live. Song Qing-shu saw her praying with her hands tied in front of her chest. Coupled with the fact that she was placed horizontally in front of her, the current posture was as strange as it could be. He could not help but laugh. You are too much of a lover than a friend. Why do you only ask Allah to bless Su-Pu's life? Are Sansur and Camel not human? I am not. Amon suddenly blushed and hurriedly prayed for Sansur and the others. Song Qing-shu calmed himself down. While guarding against stray arrows, he rode the camel and broke through the weak points of the enemy's forces. Even though the sky was filled with sand and wind, he could still sense the qi movement and avoid many risks in advance. Halfway through, Amon felt uncomfortable and asked Song Qing-shu to untie her. Song Qing-shu glanced at her and did not agree. I advise you to leave it like this, lest you say that I am taking advantage of you later. Chapter 23:43. Slave. Song Qing-shu was stunned. What the hell? Amon explained. This is the rule of our grassland tribes. The captive becomes the master's slave and must listen to the master. He can't run away or betray his master. Otherwise, he will fall into hell after death and never be reincarnated. Just now, that man captured me and made me swear to be his slave. Now that you've taken me back, I should be your slave. But we're friends, and you know my relationship with Su-Pu. Uncle, can you not make me your slave? Song Qing-shu was speechless when he saw her explaining to him with a straight face. This girl was so naive and sweet that he could only gasp in amazement. Are we friends? Ah, Amon exclaimed. So you don't see me as a friend. She thought that they had a good chat before. She had told him everything she wanted to say to him, but he didn't see her as a friend. She felt wronged and scared. She looked like she was about to cry. Song Qing-shu had a headache. Okay. I won't let you be a slave. Really? A man was pleasantly surprised. Her beautiful eyes seemed to be glowing. Of course it's true, Song Qing-shu said as he untied the restraints on her hands and helped her sit up straight. Then are we friends? Amon blinked and looked back at him. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but say, Are you so unwary of everyone? Amon looked confused. Obviously, she didn't understand what he meant. She said subconsciously, I'm good to people, so people will naturally be good to me. Why should I be wary? Song Qing-shu originally wanted to say something, but looking at her innocent face, he finally gave up and said, All right, fortune favors fools. Along the way, he had used his powerful aura to avoid any risks, choosing the weakest spots on the battlefield and slowly moving to the outer layer. Of course, if there wasn't such a huge sandstorm that made it impossible to see faces from a meter away, it would not have been so easy for him to escape from the battlefield with a delicate girl. Hugging his soft body in his arms was much more comfortable than touching a camel's hump. At first, Amon was still chatting with him, but soon a blush slowly rose from his neck. Maybe I should go down and walk, Amon whispered. Song Qing-shu replied, Do you understand what I meant just now? Amon blushed even more. He just reminded her that if she let go, she would blame him for taking advantage of her. But she did understand it all. The space between the two humps wasn't big to begin with, and with two people squeezed together, they could be said to be very close to each other. They could even faintly feel the warmth of each other's skin. For Amon, this was a little too intimate. Hold on a little longer. When we are completely out of the battlefield, I will put you down. Now, Song Qing-shu did not want to take advantage of a little girl, but there was no need to deliberately slow down the journey. Amon looked back and could still vaguely hear the sounds of fighting in the sandstorm. She could only agree. Although she was a little uncomfortable, she was not the kind of person who would pester endlessly. She knew that she could not lose the big picture because of a little. After trotting on the camel for a while, Amon suddenly exclaimed, Sun forest? Following the direction of her finger, Song Qingshu was also a little surprised. How could there be such a big forest in the depths of the desert? Could it be that the sandstorm and the war had caused everyone to fight so hard that they had unknowingly come to the edge of the desert? Originally, he was worried that it was a mirage. It was not until the two of them rushed into the forest that he was sure that his eyes were not playing tricks on him. Let's rest here for a while. Song Qingshu got down from the camel. Just now, the two of them sat in such a narrow space. The girl's body kept rubbing against his arms. Although it was not him who took the initiative, it was still not good. Bookhouse, seeing that he took the initiative to get down, Amon secretly breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Okay." After fighting in the sandstorm for most of the night, they did not expect that the sky would already be bright. They could already vaguely see the sunrise on the horizon. Song Qingshu's fire was ignited. He took out the dry food from the camel's bag and gave it to Aman. Aman was obviously very hungry, but she still chewed slowly. He could not help but sigh at how beautiful women looked even when they ate. Perhaps it was because she did not sleep for the whole night, or because she was frightened. Aman leaned against a tree and fell asleep after eating. Song Qingshu put a layer of clothes on her and also closed his eyes to rest. After an unknown amount of time, there was suddenly a noise in the distance. Song Qingshu and Aman were awakened one after another. Looking at the clothes on her body, Aman's little face was slightly red. She said to Song Qingshu, "Thank you." Song Qingshu nodded and immediately flew to the top of the tree to look into the distance for a while before coming down. Aman asked nervously, "Is it the enemy?" "Enemy? Who do you think is the enemy and who is the friend?" Song Qingshu could not help but sigh. Aman replied, "Of course the enemy is the people who attacked us last night. As for the friend, it is naturally Su Pu and the others, and of course Uncle." She originally wanted to mention the Mongols, but for some reason, when she thought of Borchu's previous attempt to molest her, she really could not associate them with the word friend. Sometimes what you see is not necessarily true. The people who attacked us last night may not be the enemy, and those who were with us last night may not be our friend. Song Qingshu knew that she most likely did not understand, so he changed his words. It was a group of scattered Mongol soldiers, about a dozen of them, and Su Pu was also with them. Wu Chun, Wu Sun, and the others were all there, but all of them were covered in dust. Wu Chen's helmet was missing, and his battle robes were stained with blood, but it was not clear whether it was his or the enemy's. Elder Wu Sun's shoulder was clearly wounded by an arrow, and even after a rough bandage, the blood still stained his white robes. As for the other Mongol soldiers, they were even more miserable, with only a broken arm or leg hanging off their bodies. In contrast, Su Pu and the others were in a much better state, as if they had not experienced many battles. Could it be that the Taiyan tribe was really in cahoots with the Wood Table Luan tribe? At the side, when Amon heard the news of her lover, she immediately jumped in joy. Su Pu and the others are fine. That's great. Yeah, there's someone over there? The commotion here and the fire alerted the Mongols in the distance. They all acted as if they were facing a great enemy, and each of them drew their scimitars, ready to fight. We're all on the same side. Song Qingshu knew that they were attacked last night, and by now they were like birds startled by the mere twang of a bow, thinking that there was an ambush here. Seeing that it was him, Wu Chan couldn't help but sigh. That scared me. I thought I was going to die here this time. Elder Wu Sun noticed that Amon was with him, and they seemed to be very familiar with each other. He couldn't help but snort. The great sex ability to run away is really good, to have escaped to this safe place so early. Before Song Qingshu could reply, Wu Chan spoke first. "Ah, you can't say that. With such a large sandstorm last night, no one could see each other clearly, so it's normal for them to get separated. Didn't you and I just reunite?" Song Qingshu nodded inwardly. As expected of Princess Yalun's father, he had some bearing. "Are you the only ones left?" Wu Chen's expression was solemn. "The others have probably all been wiped out. These people had a hard time escaping. In this treasure hunt, they had not even touched a hair of the treasure, and in the end, 2,000 Mongol troops have been wiped out, and even their commander Borchu had died in battle. How could they report to the Great Khan when they returned? At the side, Supu was in a good mood. He had thought that Amon had died, but now that the fairy-like girl was standing in front of him, he hurriedly ran over. Amon, you're fine. That's great. Eh? He suddenly noticed that his lover was wearing clothes that belonged to another man, and his expression immediately changed. Chapter 2344. Female Slave. Supu's expression changed, and he quickly asked what was going on. A man told him how she had been captured. Hearing that she had been saved by the Water Moon sect, Supu revealed a look of gratitude. However, when he learned that the two of them were in the same boat and that his lover had been taken advantage of by another man, he felt very unhappy and his eyes were filled with hostility. Wu Chun, Wu Sun, and the others on the side had strange expressions. They thought that the Water Moon sect's luck was not bad, actually obtaining this kind of chance to be a hero and save a beauty. However, what was the point of doing this? Wouldn't it be better to just make her his female slave? Could it be that he wanted to win her heart? These Japanese devils really knew how to play around. Wu Chen was fine since he was about to marry the princess, but Wu Sun was a bit unhappy. It had to be known that Yali Xian and Ah Man were already considered his exclusive property. How could he allow others to touch them? However, he had just experienced a large defeat and was injured, so it was not good for him to fall out with the Water Moon sect at this time. After hesitating a bit, he said to Wu Chun, "How about we go back to Yilin and gather our men to take revenge for this?" As long as they returned to Yilin, with his status, he would be able to gather more resources than the Water Moon sect. How could he compete with him at that time? If they continued to stay here and allowed a man to mix with the Water Moon sect's playboy, who knew when the soup would be taken by him, it would be a large loss for him. However, Wu Chun immediately rejected this proposal. "No, we came out to find the treasure this time. But not only did we not find anything, we were completely annihilated by the enemy, and even Boru was killed. How will I explain this to the Great Khan when I return? We have to at least find the treasure first." Old man Wu Sun thought of how he would be punished when he returned and how the Wooden Table Luan tribe's army was not far away. Perhaps they were waiting to ambush them on the way back. He did not say anything else, but he secretly thought that he had to pay close attention to the situation and not give the Water Moon sect a chance to make a move. Supu wanted to bring a man and the others back to the tribe. After all, they had never been to these places before and could not be used as guides. At the same time, he wanted to bring a man away from danger, especially that Japanese. He felt that he was the most dangerous person. As for his previous agreement with Li Wenxiu, he would send a man back and then come back to look for them. However, his proposal was immediately vetoed by Wu Chun. Firstly, they had suffered heavy losses and did not have many people on hand. Every additional person would be an additional portion of strength. More importantly, if they leaked their whereabouts after they left, wouldn't it be all over for them? When they noticed that the Mongolians around them had placed their hands on the hilts of their weapons, Supu and the others knew that if they did not agree to it, blood might spill on the spot. Hence, they had no choice but to continue staying in the group. "Supu, I'm a little scared. I don't think these people are good people." No matter how innocent Amanda was, she also felt the strangeness in the team, especially when Bor suddenly wanted to do something bad to her last time, which made her hate him even more. Of course, someone must be excluded. "Don't be afraid. I'll protect you." Supu patted his chest and said. Sansur and Camel also comforted him, but they didn't have much confidence. "Supu, if they find the treasure, will they let us go?" A man suddenly asked. Supu frowned. Sansur and Camel also came over and whispered, "In my opinion, I'm afraid they won't let us go. We have to plan ahead." Supu nodded. Fortunately, Xiao and her sister were here. "Don't worry. I've already made arrangements for the next thing." At the same time, Xiao's sister's smile appeared in his mind, and he felt like his mind was wandering. She doesn't seem to have smiled at me. Then why did I think of her smile? Sansur and Camel hurriedly asked about the plan. Supu's expression turned cold, and he said nothing. Although he was a little reckless, he knew what was important. If the Mongolians knew about it, they would be finished. Juzhou Chinese, the Mongolians temporarily rested, while Wu Chun summoned Wu Sun, Song Qing Shu, and the others for a meeting. He pointed to the mountains in the distance and said, "I have someone who is good at geography with me." He pointed out that according to the terrain, the capital of Gaochang should not be built in a place without a water source. And this unbelievably large oasis is probably near Gaochang ancient country. Oasis? Song Qingshu looked at the endless mountains and forests, and he wanted to say, how can this be called an oasis? It's possible that the underground water veins have changed over thousands of years, creating this forest in the depths of the desert. A perverted man beside Wu Chen explained. Obviously, he was that expert in geography. Many things were essentially the same. The Han people called it geomancy, and other ethnic groups also had their own names. Report: footprints have been found in the distance. The scout who was sent out to investigate rushed back. Footprints? How many people? Wu Chun immediately became nervous. Could it be that the wooden table Luan tribe had caught up? It seems to be the footprints of a person, the scout replied. A person? How could there be someone in this place? Wu Chun, Wu Sun, and the others looked at each other. They really could not understand how footprints could appear out of nowhere in the depths of the desert. It has snowed in this area for the past 2 days, so the footprints are still very clear, extending all the way into the depths of the mountains. This subordinate did not dare to continue investigating and came back to report. The scout continued to report. Could it be the evil ghost in the desert? Sansur and Camel, who were standing to the side, were trembling. Their voices were filled with panic. It was obvious that the legends they had heard since they were young had been carved into their bones. Evil ghost. Wu Chun and Wu Sun sneered. They were naturally not afraid of these illusory legends. It seems that someone is playing tricks on us. As expected, someone deliberately spread the news to avoid the discovery of the treasure. Since someone is leading the way, it saves us the trouble of looking for it. Pass down the order, we will set out immediately. Song Qing Shu could not help but say, could it be that someone deliberately set up an ambush? Wu Sun chuckled and said, the major sects are really so timid. Hee, so cautious. If it is the Mu Zhuoluan tribe, since they already know where we are, there is no need to waste time. If it is not, then there is only one person. With so many of us, what is there to be afraid of? Wu Chen smiled and said, Shaman is right. Let's go. Everyone followed the footprints into the depths of the mountains. The more they went, the more difficult it became to walk. Fortunately, the footprints were very obvious in the snow. However, the terrain was dangerous and the road was rugged. In fact, there was no road at all. They could only follow the footprints of the people before them through the hills and valleys. The road in front of them was endless, and the 2 lines of footprints in the snow seemed to lead straight to hell. Supu became more and more worried. What if Xiao and his sister encountered the evil ghost? Would they be all right? Sister Xiao's martial arts were so high that she would not be afraid of the evil ghost. But if it was an evil ghost, would martial arts be of any use? Beside him, Sansur also felt a little scared. However, he did not want to show his fear in front of the goddess. So he said to Supu, Supu, you are trembling all over. It is not fun to be scared. Why don't you wait here for me? If we find the treasure, I will definitely give you a share. Chapter 2345. Supu was enraged. You're acting like a hero now, but when the evil ghost comes out, let's see who will run first. You or Camel? Camel and Sansur were martial brothers, so he naturally spoke up for him. We still have the strength to run when we see the evil ghost, unlike you, kneeling on the ground and trembling in fear. Supu was angry, but he couldn't say that he was worried about Ashio and the others, so he was depressed for a moment. Fortunately, Man came out to smooth things over and persuaded them to stop bickering. There's a path in the forest. Wu Chen noticed that even though it was overgrown with weeds, there were still some traces of an ancient path. Looks like we found the right place this time. Elder Wu Sun was also a little excited. This time, they had suffered such a crushing defeat, and now there was finally some good news. The group was greatly refreshed, and they continued to walk forward. After walking for a long time, a man suddenly exclaimed, "Oh no, this is bad." Supu hurriedly asked, "What's wrong?" A man pointed at a shining silver bracelet on the side of the road ahead, saying, "Look, this is the bracelet I dropped earlier." The bracelet was about 2 or 3 feet in front of them, but they didn't know why it suddenly appeared here. A man said, "I dropped the bracelet, and I thought I would have to look for it when I came back. How did it end up here again?" Wu Chan frowned. "Take a good look, is it really it?" A man didn't dare to pick it up, so Supu went forward and lifted it up. Before a man could identify it, he had already recognized it, saying, "Yes, it's hers." Saying so, he handed the bracelet to her. A man didn't dare to take it, and said with a trembling voice, "You threw it on the ground. I don't want it anymore." Supu said, "Is it really a trick played by the evil ghost?" Even though it was daytime, everyone felt a chill run up their backs, and their expressions were very strange. The Mongolians originally didn't believe in such things, but once they arrived at Taiyin tribe, they heard the legends of evil ghosts, and now they couldn't help but feel scared. The shaman under Wuchun, who was good at geography, was called Kaluo. He walked over, picked up the bracelet, and looked at it, then ran around and looked around. "I see," he said. "We must have taken a detour and come back." All of a sudden, Su Pu and the others, who had lived on the edge of the desert for a long time, thought of the famous legend. A traveler in the desert lost his way and suddenly found footprints. He was overjoyed and followed the footprints, but he didn't know that they were his own footprints. He followed the old path and went around in circles until he died. Wu Chan frowned. "But we've clearly been moving forward. How do we end up circling around to the back?" The layout of this place must have confused our sense of direction. Kaluo explained, "I heard that the Han can achieve a similar effect through some formations, called Chimanduanjia or something." Song Ching Shu suddenly understood. No wonder there was a strange feeling when he walked just now. It was because when people walked, the distance taken by their right foot was slightly longer than the distance taken by their left foot. The difference of 1 or 2 steps was not very big, but the accumulated difference was very obvious after walking for a long time. Therefore, in that kind of environment where you could not tell the direction, you thought you were walking in a straight line, but in fact, you were walking in a gentle arc. In the end, you would catch up to your previous footprints and form a circle. Can we find the right way? Wu Chun was a little anxious. He still wanted to find the treasure so he could report back. But if they were trapped here, wouldn't it be all over? 20-inch, I'll try my best, but I need time. Kaluo fiddled with some stones, branches, and other things on the ground to study, presumably trying to figure out the layout of this place. The mysterious footprints from before had already disappeared, so they could only rely on themselves for the rest. "Leave it to me," Wu Sun suddenly said. Wu Chen couldn't help but be overjoyed. "How could I forget the great shaman's abilities? With you around, there will naturally be no problem. I hope the treasure vault isn't too far from here. If it's too far, I won't be able to sense it." Elder Wu Sun sat cross-legged on the ground, his eyes slowly closed. His subordinates had already surrounded him to protect him. Song Qing Shu felt a huge wave of mental energy brush past him, spreading out in all directions with this place as the center. He couldn't help but feel surprised. Could it be that he can also use the function of a radar? In fact, the soul search technique he learned from Li Qiushui had a similar function, but he could only use his powerful internal energy to spread out the sound waves to search for people. If the other party did not respond, the chances of him finding them were very low. Looking at Elder Wu Sun's posture, he should be able to use his huge mental energy to scan the surroundings and build a three-dimensional map in his mind. Of course, there were advantages and disadvantages. He should only be able to sense objects of a certain size and above. If it was just 1 or 2 people, it probably wouldn't show up on the map. However, it was perfect for finding the labyrinth here. After a long time, Elder Wu Sun opened his eyes, and Wu Chun hurriedly asked, "How is it?" Elder Wu Sun smiled. "Our luck is good. We should not be far from the Gaochang labyrinth." As he said this, he pointed in a direction. Of course, he wasn't 100% sure, but through his mental energy scan, he found that there was something different about that direction. It should be a building or something like that. Wu Chun hurriedly ordered everyone to search in that direction. The road became high and winding, making it very difficult to travel. If not for his trust in Wu Sun, he would have long since retreated. After walking for about a few miles, the scout at the front suddenly exclaimed. Song Qing Shu and the others hurriedly went forward to take a look. They saw a stone mountain on the opposite side, with 2 iron doors embedded in it. The doors were mottled with rust, showing that they had been around for a long time. The Gaochang Labyrinth. Everyone cheered. Wu Chun and Wu Sun almost cried tears of joy. They had finally found the treasure. This way, they would be able to answer to the Great Khan. A man looked at the door in the distance and muttered to himself, "The legend of the tribe is true. There really is a treasure in the depths of the desert." Sancer and Camel were also excited. Only Su Pu was full of worry. I wonder if Xiao and her sister have found the place. Although the number of Mongols has decreased, they're all experts. Especially that white-robed shaman. He is like a god. With just a few of us, will we be able to deal with them? Song Qing Shu was also worried. He wondered if there would be any changes to the Gaochang treasure in this world. If there really was a treasure, how could they let the Mongols take advantage of it? Some of the Mongol soldiers had already run over to push the iron doors. These soldiers who had survived the battlefield were all brave warriors, but it was a pity that the 2 doors did not budge at all. The lecherous man Lolu walked over. Knowing his capabilities, everyone retreated. He looked at the door for a long time and found that it was as if the door was born in the stone mountain. There was not a single crack on it. He looked around, and finally, his eyes fell on the knocker. He walked forward and turned to the left, but it did not budge. He frowned and said, "This labyrinth has been built for hundreds of years. Although the desert is very dry, the iron doors must have rusted. Even if there is a knocker, it will not budge." Chapter 2346. Everyone was shocked and rushed over to check, only to see the lecherous man's body around the entrance. There was no trace of anyone else. Wu Chun examined his carotid artery with a gloomy face and shook his head. Could it really be an evil ghost? Sancer muttered to himself. The Taiyan tribe members trembled, clearly terrified to the bone. "There's no evil ghost," Elder Wu Sun said in a low voice. "Take off his clothes and check if there are any wounds on his body." The Mongolian soldiers quickly took off Karluk's clothes. A man turned away in embarrassment, while Su Pu and the rest craned their necks to check. The soldiers examined his body carefully and finally said in a daze, "There are no wounds." Camel's teeth chattered as he took a step back. "I knew it. It must be an evil ghost coming for us." Elder Wu Sun turned to look at Song Qing Shu. "Big brother, did you send someone behind the door?" Song Qing Shu shook his head. Other than Karluk, there was no one else's aura near the door. Elder Wu Sun also said, "I didn't sense anyone behind the door either." This time, even the Mongolian party felt a chill in their hearts. Is there really an evil ghost here? When they stared at the dark entrance, the group of Mongolian soldiers instinctively took 2 steps back, and they stared at Wu Chun with expectant eyes. Wu Chun frowned. There was no turning back now, but with such low morale, it would be troublesome to force them to die. Suddenly, an idea came to him. He said to Su Pu and the rest, "You guys go ahead and scout." Su Pu and the rest immediately objected. "Why us? I told you there's an evil ghost here." Wu Chun did not waste any more time. He drew his saber and placed it on a man's neck. "If you don't go, I'll kill her immediately." Wu Sun's eyelids twitched. He was worried that his hand would shake and turn the beautiful girl he had been eyeing into a corpse. However, he would not jump out to ruin Wu Chen's plan at a time like this. He knew that this was Wu Chen's plan. Song Qing Shu held his saber with both hands and looked on coldly from the side. "You're too despicable." Su Pu gnashed his teeth. Unfortunately, the situation was against him, and he had no choice but to give in. "All right, I'll go scout." "Sancer, Camel, this has nothing to do with you. You two stay behind." Sancer and Camel immediately shouted, "Armin is our master's daughter. How can you say it has nothing to do with us? Besides, Our Taiyin tribe only has brave warriors who will fight to the death. There are no cowards who run away. Amon was the most beautiful flower in the tribe, and no one wanted to see her wither in front of them, even if her lover was not them. Moreover, this was related to their reputation in the tribe, so even though they were afraid, they still insisted on going with them. Sansur, camel. Amon's tears fell like pearls. He felt that he had harmed them. Seeing the lover of their dreams shed tears for them for the first time, Sansel and Camel suddenly felt refreshed, as if evil spirits were not so scary anymore. Luiko, all right, go scout the way. Wachun urged impatiently. Supu and the other two had to pull out their sabers and walk slowly through the gate. Sansur and Camel were worried that they would die like that lecher as soon as they entered the gate. Supu was thinking, I wonder if Oxiu and her sister have encountered this kind of danger when they came here before. Where are they now? The three carefully entered the gate with different thoughts in their minds. To their delight, they did not encounter Galalu and entered the gate safely. Wachun breathed a sigh of relief at the back and called the soldiers to follow. He followed behind with Amin in custody, and Wusun was also with him. When she passed by Song Qing-shu, a man looked at him with a pitiful expression, but Song Qing-shu pretended not to see it. He was not the kind of person who could not walk away when he saw beauty. This trip to the north was of great importance, and he could not ruin the whole plan just because of her. Behind the gate was a long, dark tunnel. Supu and the other two lit torches, holding a torch in one hand and a long saber in the other, and led the way. The Mongolian soldiers behind also made torches and lit them up. Of course, Wachun, Wusun, and Song Qing-shu did not need to hold the torches themselves. There were soldiers around them to light them up. Ah! Amin suddenly screamed. It turned out that she had been worried about Supu's safety. Her eyes were fixed on him, and she noticed several skeletons lying at the foot of the wall in front of them. Soon, a Mongolian soldier came forward to investigate and reported, some of their clothes are weathered, some are barely recognizable, but without exception, their bodies have all turned into white bones. I think the earliest one died decades ago. Supu, Sansur, and the others looked at each other in shock. No wonder there was a rumor in the tribe that no one could come back alive after entering the depths of the desert to look for treasure. It seemed that there were brave warriors who came to look for it in the past hundreds of years, but they all died here. Can you tell what the cause of death is? Wachun asked in a deep voice. The Mongolian soldier shook his head and said, other than their own weapons, there was nothing left at the scene. Moreover, the bodies have all turned into white bones, so it's hard to determine the cause of death. Not everyone in this era was like Song Ci, who could determine the cause of death just by looking at the bones. Are they really evil spirits? The same thought rose in everyone's mind. When they looked at the long tunnel in front of them again, it was like a giant snake that was about to devour them, giving them an oppressive and terrifying feeling. Wachun braced himself and said, don't panic, everyone. We, the Mongols, are not only protected by the everlasting heaven, but also by the Western Vatican and the gods and Buddhas. Evil spirits are nothing to us. When the Mongolian soldiers heard this, they gradually calmed down. These years, the Zen sect, Tantra sect, Chuanjin sect in the east, and the Vatican in the west had sent countless people to preach to the Great Khan. Speaking of which, they were indeed protected by the gods and Buddhas. Thinking about it this way, they were not so afraid of evil spirits. Not long after the group of people continued to walk, Song Qing-shu suddenly noticed some murals on the stone walls on both sides. It was a story of the brave warriors of the Gaochang kingdom fighting against the invaders, but in the end, they were defeated and retreated to this place. The whole story gave a feeling that it was not because the army did not work hard, but because the enemy was too arrogant. Thinking about the identity of the invaders, Song Qing-shu felt a little strange, because in history, it was the famous general Ho Junji who destroyed the Gaochang kingdom. Suddenly, he noticed that the eyes on the murals were a little strange. He walked forward to take a closer look and found that the circles on the eyeballs were not painted, but were originally round holes on the wall. Looking around, he found that the walls were densely packed with such round holes. but they were hidden in the murals, so it was difficult to see at first glance. Chapter 23:47. The moment the mechanism sounded, countless arrows shot out from the walls on both sides of the tunnel. In such a narrow space, how could the arrows from the crossbows be dodged so easily? Almost in an instant, half of the soldiers fell to the ground. Although Song Qing-shu was skilled in martial arts, he was the closest to the wall. If he had reacted a little slower, he would have been turned into a porcupine by the arrows that suddenly shot out. Hearing the screams, everyone dropped their torches on the ground. Half of the tunnel was darkened, turning it into hell. Song Qing-shu could not bear to do this. With Wu Sun and Wu Chen's cultivation base and status, these sharp arrows would not be able to kill them. Those who died were just some lowly soldiers. Moreover, there were a few innocent people from Taiyin tribe among them. The water moon saber was unsheathed, and a cold light flashed in the tunnel. The arrows that were shot out were all cut by his saber energy. The crossbows in this mechanism were not endless, and after 2 rounds, they stopped shooting. Song Qing-shu raised his torch and asked, "Is everyone okay?" Wu Chun hurriedly took stock and found that more than half of the Mongolian soldiers who came in had died, and the others were all injured. He and Wu Sun were fine because the guards beside them raised their shields in time. A man was also safe because he stayed by his side. However, Su Pu and the others were much worse off. Su Pu and Sancer were both hit by the arrows. Fortunately, the injuries were not fatal, and at this moment, they did not care about their own injuries. Instead, they desperately covered Camel's neck, but blood continued to gush out. Camel's mouth gurgled, but he could not speak a complete sentence. With an arrow in his neck, even a deity could not save him. In the end, he could only die in Su Pu's arms. Camel, a man immediately burst into tears. Su Pu and Sancer also had tears in their eyes. Wu Chen did not care about their life and death. Instead, he thanked Song Qing-shu and said, "This time, it is all thanks to the great sect's help. Otherwise, we would have lost more people." Wu Sun stared at the saber in his hand with some surprise. Previously, when he heard that Su Pu was a deserter from Xingqing Prefecture, he felt a little disdainful. Now that he recalled the saber energy, he also felt a sense of fear. If he fought with Su Pu, he must not let Su Pu get close to him, or else he would be in danger. At this moment, Su Pu heard this and glared at Song Qing-shu fiercely. "Why didn't you help earlier? Otherwise, Camel wouldn't have died." Just then, Song Qing-shu frowned. Camel's neck was already shot by an arrow in the first round. How could he have saved him in time? But he was too lazy to explain. However, he did not bother with Su Pu. He sheathed his saber and ignored Su Pu. Amin hurriedly explained on his behalf. In that kind of situation, Uncle couldn't care less. Besides, we were saved by him. Man and Su Amon, Su and Su. In that Uncle we Su, Uncle he said Su. What made Su Pu depressed was that his lover always sided with Su Pu. He thought that Su Pu was not really from the Shuiwa sect, but he opened his mouth and did not say anything. Then, he wondered why Xiao and the others did not warn him. Could it be that they, too, were, at this time, Wu Sun was discussing with Wu Chun. The design of this trap is too vicious. They placed the trigger mechanism at the rear end, so that our entire army would be within the firing range of these crossbows. It is indeed vicious. But what I am more curious about is that this is a ruin from 1,000 years ago. No matter how intricate the mechanism is, it should not be able to function properly after such a long time. How could these crossbows still work? After all, Wu Chun was born into the most powerful clan in Mongolia. After following Temujin for so many years, what kind of situation had he not seen? He immediately realized that something was amiss. It is indeed strange. Wu Sun nodded. Could it be that someone deliberately set us up? Song Qing-shu also thought to himself, could it be that this was a trap set up by Lost in the Sea? But how could she be so resourceful? Wu Chen's expression was solemn. No matter what, now that things have come to this, we can no longer retreat. From now on, we must be on full alert. Although Su Pu and the others were devastated, under the pressure of the Mongols, They had no choice but to temporarily put down the body of their comrade and wait for their return to the tribe to bury him. 186 Chinese net, however, their hearts were filled with doubts. Would they still have the chance to return to the tribe? Not long after the group of people walked down the corridor, 3 forks appeared in front of them. Supu could not help but stop. Wu Chan went forward to investigate, but the entrances of each fork were almost identical. There was no way to tell the difference. There seems to be footprints on the ground. Wu Sun's eyes were sharp. He quickly picked up a torch and squatted down to examine the ground. However, he discovered that it could barely be called a footprint. It was only a very small round mark, which was very different from humans' footprint. Are there any animals with footprints like this around here? Wu Chun turned to look at Aman, shook his head in bewilderment. No animal's footprint would be this small. Even a rabbit should have a toe print. But this is an even circle. Ah, she suddenly exclaimed. Could this be the footprints of that evil spirit? Wu Chun glared at her fiercely. Shut up. You need to spread lies to confuse people. Those traps were clearly made by humans. There are no evil spirits in this world. If anyone dares to mention this again, don't blame me for being merciless. After last night's terrible defeat, and just now, half his men had died. The morale of his soldiers was at rock bottom, and he could not allow this woman to talk nonsense anymore. Listen up, brothers. As long as we find the Gao Chong Kingdom's treasure, I will share my share equally with all of you. Everyone will have a share. Roar. The morale of the soldiers, who had been at rock bottom, instantly became spirited. Although there were many people to share, this was the accumulated wealth of a country. If everyone got a share, it would be enough for them to live the rest of their lives in luxury. Wasn't this the purpose of going to war? Song Qing-shu sighed inwardly when he saw this. It was no wonder that the Mongolian army was undefeatable. They really did not hold back when it came to rewarding their subordinates. Many of the armies from the dynasties in the Central Plains had their salaries taken away from them. It was already considered good if the soldiers could get their share on time. Most of the time, they would even have to fight on empty stomachs and without pay, so how could they possibly win? When he was with Agio, he often heard her talk about the fall of the dynasty. At that time, many of her father's generals were like sheep in battle, suffering all kinds of crushing defeats. After they surrendered to the Manchurian Qing, each of them seemed to have become a different person. Each of their subordinates became a tiger and a wolf, which made her hate these traitorous generals. After Wu Chun regained his morale, they discussed the 3 forks. Wu Sun suggested, let's split into 3 teams and explore one side each. We'll meet back here later. No, splitting our forces is a taboo. Wu Chun shook his head and refused. Since this place is called a labyrinth, the paths must be winding. It's better for us to go together. What's more, there might be people lying in ambush against us. Splitting our forces will be exactly what they want. Although Wu Sun boasted that he was not afraid of evil spirits, there was no need to take the risk. Thus, he agreed, and the group took the right side first. After the previous experience, the group walked very cautiously. Su Pu and Sansur were forced to walk at the front even after their wounds were bandaged. Suddenly, another 3 forks appeared in front of them. Wu Sun couldn't help but say to Wu Chun, you have foresight. There must be many forks ahead. If we split our forces again and again, I'm afraid we won't have enough manpower. Wu Chun didn't feel complacent. Looking at the 3 forks, he felt that trying them one by one was not the way to go. So, he ordered Su Pu and Sansur to each go to one cave to investigate, while he sent his men to the other cave to see if they could find any pattern. After glancing at Amon, Su Pu and Sansur reluctantly left. Who knew that not long after they left, they suddenly heard Su Pu scream. Everyone hurried to the source of the sound, but they only saw a torch and his scimitar on the ground. As for Su Pu, he was nowhere to be seen. Chapter 2348. Big Brother, did you feel someone just now? Old man Wu Sun subconsciously turned to look at Big Brother Shui Wei, only to find that in a flash, Big Brother Shui Wei was already running towards the entrance of the cave. He couldn't help but secretly exclaim, this guy's lightness skill is really good. Not long after, seeing him return with a heavy face, everyone hurriedly asked, "How was it?" Song Qing-shu shook his head. Not long after I chased forward, 3 more forks appeared. I chose one and went in, but it was another fork. I was worried that I would get lost, so I retreated. Under such circumstances, no matter how good his lightness skill was, he couldn't catch up. Hearing his words, Amon felt her vision go black, and she fainted. Amon! Sanser hurried over to support her so that she wouldn't fall, unwilling to let these Mongols touch her again. Everyone knew that 2 of his companions had died, so they didn't bother to argue with him. Old man Wu Sun pulled Wu Chun and big brother Shueiyue aside to discuss. What should we do next? It seems that there are still countless forks ahead. If we try one by one, who knows how long it will take? Wu Chun said bitterly, "If it wasn't for the sneak attack by the Wood Table Luan tribe in Galdan, I have 2,000 warriors under my command, and we can directly search every cave. Sooner or later, I will catch that bitch Hua Qingtong and humiliate her." Wu Sun laughed. "I heard that Hua Qingtong's sister is even more beautiful." Wu Chun squinted at him. "Princess Xiangxiang is naturally the Khan's. As his subordinates, how would we dare to have any ideas about her?" Wu Sun sensed the warning in his tone and felt a little unhappy. "The most beautiful Princess Xiangxiang is the Khan's, and the second most beautiful Hua Qingtong is yours. What about me?" But he also knew how high the status of the Hondurat tribe was in Mongolia, and he could not compete with them, so he could only think of other people. He heard that there was a peerless city in the Dzungar Khaganate, and the descendants of the dual cultivators were all stunning beauties, and they were good at dual cultivators. TSK, TSK, TSK. The work must be good, and he heard that the dual cultivator princess of this generation had also come out. Then he suddenly thought of something and hastily asked Song Qing-shu, "Great sect, I heard that Galdan brought people from the residence of dual cultivators to the Western Xia's marriage selection. Have you seen the princess of dual cultivators in Western Xia? Guzi Xian?" Song Qing-shu was startled and answered subconsciously, "Yes, why? How does he look?" Wu Sun chuckled. How could Song Qing-shu not know what this old pervert was planning? He snorted angrily. "She usually covers her face, so I can't see what she looks like. You should be able to see his body and skin, right?" Elder Wu Sun asked. "Graceful and alluring, skin like cream." Thinking of Guzi Xian's flirtatious appearance, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but feel his heart heat up. "TSK, you make it sound like you've touched it before." Wu Sun rolled his eyes. He had already made up his mind that when he breached Peerless City in the future, he would definitely snatch the dual cultivator princess away. Wu Chun coughed. "Let's get down to business first. What should we do with the current situation? I checked just now, and I can't see any signs or anything like that at any fork in the road." Song Qing-shu said, "In fact, we can keep walking on the right side. If we keep walking, there is a high probability that we will find our destination." This was the method of walking through mazes concluded by later generations. Many mazes kept walking along the right side of the wall, and one would eventually find the exit. Of course, this method had its limitations. The entrance and exit had to be on the same line. If they encountered a maze that was shaped like a circle, where the entrance and exit were not on the same line, this method wouldn't work. There were also mazes with multiple layers, which were even more complicated. They could only hope that the people of Gaochang 1,000 years ago didn't have such a complicated mind. However, Wu Chun said, "This will take too much effort. If the exit happens to be on the left side, won't we have to try one last time to find the treasure?" After saying that, he looked at Elder Wu Sun. "Shaman, can you use your mental power to investigate?" Song Qing-shu's mind lit up. He was also confused. Why did he always think of using scientific methods to solve problems? After all, this world was a world where there were many unscientific methods. Elder Wu Sun frowned and said, "I can give it a try, but there are too many twists and turns here. My mental power will affect each other, so it might not work." Song Qing-shu nodded. In this kind of terrain, mental power that was spread out would be quickly reflected back, and it would easily interfere with other mental powers. It was difficult to construct the correct terrain in his mind. "Shaman, Please give it a try. Wu Chen was overjoyed. He had the surrounding soldiers clear an open space for him. Elder Wu's son sat cross-legged in the middle and quickly fell into meditation. Wisps of mental power probed the various forks in front of him. Song Qing-shu went to the side to check on the fainted man. Sansur was very guarded against other Mongolians, but he was not so nervous around him. After checking her pulse, Sansur asked nervously, "How is man?" Song Qing-shu replied, "She just fainted from overwork and great joy and sorrow. It's not a big deal. I just need to help her circulate her blood." Now that there were dangers at every step in this maze, it was too dangerous to let her continue to be unconscious. As he said that, he placed his palm on her back and sent a warm stream of jinqi into her. After a while, a man woke up with a moan. However, when she saw Su Pu's scimitar, she immediately felt sad. Su Pu, Song Qing-shu, did not want her to faint again, so he immediately said, "Don't worry. The one who captured Su Pu is a human, not a ghost. Since the other party did not take Su Pu's life on the spot, he should not be in danger for the time being." Really? Man's previously blank eyes gradually regained their spirit. Of course, so you have to take care of yourself. Only then will we be able to find him together. Song Qing-shu nodded. "Thank you, uncle." Man happily hugged Song Qing-shu. In her opinion, he was his elder, so she did not think of him as a bad person. However, this made Sansur jealous. Even Song Qing-shu felt a little uncomfortable. He hurriedly pushed her soft body away and retreated to the side of Wu Chun and the others. Seeing Wu Chun secretly give him a thumbs up, Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly. This time, he really did not mean to do it. Speaking of which, it was a bit strange. With the appearance of the Water Moon sect, he could also win the favor of a girl. Could it be that his charm was so great that even a disguise could not hide it? At this time, old man Wu's son also slowly opened his eyes. He first glared at Song Qing-shu. Clearly, under the cover of his spiritual force, what happened just now could not be hidden from him. Then he said, "The maze is too complicated. My spiritual force was too exhausted along the way, so I cannot investigate too far. I can only temporarily eliminate a few branches that lead to dead ends." Wu Chun was overjoyed. This is already a great help. Where should we go next? Chapter 2349. Seeing that everyone had chosen this direction, the happiest person was Man, because this was where Su Pu had been captured. The group walked for a long time, and there were countless forks in the cave. Every time they came to a fork, Wu's son would meditate and eliminate a few impossible forks. Sometimes, even he could not make up his mind, so everyone could only choose a random path. Along the way, Wu Chun would use a knife to mark the mountain walls, so that when they came out, they would not be able to find the original path. After walking for an unknown amount of time, suddenly, the view in front of them opened up, and a large, open space appeared. At the end of it, there were two iron doors embedded in the mountain rocks. Wu Chun was overjoyed. How we found the place where the treasure is hidden. The group hurried across the open space and came to the door. Wu Chun asked Sansur to turn the knocker, but unexpectedly, the door was unlatched. With a light touch, it opened with a creak. Everyone walked in and saw that there was a hall inside. The four walls were decorated with clay and wooden statues of Buddha. After entering the hall, there was a row of houses. Most of the houses were decorated with Buddhist statues. Occasionally, they saw a few Chinese characters written on the walls. They read King of Gao Chong State, Wen Tai, Tang Zhiguan 13th year, and so on. There was a hall full of Han statues. In the middle of the hall was an old man. On the plaque was written the words that Cheng, Ji, Shikongzi. On the left and right were dozens of people with the names Yanhui and so on. Sansur and Man were confused, and Wu Chun frowned. Who are these people? These are the ancient sages of the Han people. Wu's son was experienced and knowledgeable, so he explained, "This is really strange. The people here clearly believe in God, so why are there so many Buddha statues and Han statues? Chests. Treasure." Suddenly, A Mongolian soldier pointed at a pile of chests placed at the center and cried out in excitement. Without waiting for Wei-Chen's order, the group of people ran to the treasure chests in a frenzy. Since the devastating defeat last night to the series of events that happened today, everyone had been depressed for far too long. Now that they finally found the treasure, there was no way they would not be happy. Everyone had the same idea. They wanted to fill their pockets with more gold, silver, and jewels. Over the past few years, after the Mongolian army conquered the cities, everyone would do this. Whoever managed to get their hands on the treasures would own them, and the higher-ups would not care. Besides, this time, Wei-Chen had already said that they would split the treasures equally. Wu Chun and Wu Sun did not go over. They naturally had to pay attention to their table manners in front of their subordinates. In any case, they would not be spared in the end. Song Qing-shu was with Amen. Amen looked around, but did not see Su Pu. Her eyes were filled with sadness. In order to comfort her, Sanser ran to the other rooms to see if there were any clues. What's this? The Mongolian soldiers opened the treasure chests, but they did not see the gold ingots that they had expected. Instead, the chests were filled with oily green particles. Is this a gem? One of the Mongolian soldiers picked one up and examined it closely. There seemed to be patterns carved on it. It looked a little like a worm, and the craftsmanship was very vivid. Song Qing-shu looked in the direction of the voice, and his hair stood on end. He shouted, "Throw it away!" What? The Mongolian soldier turned around in confusion, while the others sneered in their hearts. They had heard that Gaochong was rich in gems, and they would not be able to wait to stuff these gems into their pockets. Throw them away? Were they crazy? Just as the Mongolian soldier turned around, the green gem in his hand suddenly moved. The foot carved on it suddenly stretched out, and a crack appeared on its surface. Soon, a worm shook its head and crawled out. The Mongolian soldier felt a sharp pain in his hand. He turned around and saw that the worm was biting his finger. He instinctively wanted to throw it away, but the worm was biting so hard. How could he throw it away? Just as he was about to use his knife to get rid of it, the worm bit through his flesh and crawled into his hand. There was a visible bulge on his arm, and it kept moving on his shoulder. Audiobook City, although the Mongolian soldier was brave, he had never seen something like this. He immediately screamed in fear. If he had decisively cut off his arm with his knife, he might have been able to keep his life, but how could a normal person make that kind of decision? While he was hesitating, the bulge had already moved from his shoulder to his neck, then to his face, temples. In the end, his whole body suddenly trembled, and he fell heavily to the ground. His mouth was wide open, and soon a worm crawled out of his mouth. The whole process seemed to take a long time to describe, but in reality, it happened in a short moment. Maybe it was because they smelled blood, or maybe they heard the call of their own kind, but the green gems in the chest all woke up as if they had become demons from hell, and they bit the people closest to them. The Mongolian soldiers' screams rose and fell. The worst thing was that many of them had greedily stuffed a lot of green gems into their arms, and as a result, a large number of worms went straight into their stomachs. Soon, their flesh was eaten clean, and they turned into dried corpses. Why did Song Qing-shu have such a big reaction? It was because he recognized these things at first glance. When he watched the Mummy series, the scene of the tide of scarabs devouring human bodies left a huge psychological trauma in his heart. Other than the color being a little green, this thing was exactly the same as a scarab. The densely packed worms in the chest all woke up, and Mongolian soldiers quickly fell to the ground while screaming in pain. Then, their bodies were covered with green worms, and not long after, they turned into a pile of skeletons. The remaining worms spread out in the house, looking for new prey. Seeing that the whole house was about to be filled with green worms, everyone ran out with all their might, and Song Qing-shu was no exception. This thing had traumatized him too much, and he did not want to have anything to do with it. As he ran, he saw a man who had been knocked to the ground and hurriedly pulled her into his arms. At the same time, he saw the dumbfounded Wei-Chun at the side and subconsciously pulled him along. After running for an unknown amount of time, Song Shu could no longer hear the rustling of the insects behind him. He stopped and panted heavily. Just now, what was that thing? Amon's voice was still trembling. It should be a sacred beetle. It feeds on the flesh and blood of living creatures. It is often placed in ancient tombs to prevent grave robbers. However, this thing should be produced in Egypt. Why would it appear here? Song Shu said with lingering fear. Many thanks to great sect for saving my life this time. Chun, who was sitting paralyzed on the ground, gasped for breath. He had fought in many wars, but this was the first time he had seen such a strange thing. Song Shu was stunned. He did not understand why he had saved him just now. Speaking of which, it seemed to be more beneficial for him if he died silently here. However, in that kind of situation, it was difficult for him to not save him. In the end, he was still too soft-hearted. Forget it. Princess Yaluen had specially given him a gift. This time, he would return the favor. Uncle, did you see Sans, sir? Amon asked with some fear as she tightly grasped his sleeve. Song Shu replied, I just saw him run in another direction with Wu Sun and the others. He originally wanted to save you, but Wu Sun forcibly took him away. It's good that he is fine. God bless us. Amon let out a long sigh of relief. To the side, Chun could not help but say, this place has been here for at least a few hundred years, if not 1,000. What kind of worm can live for so long? Chapter 2350. A man exclaimed, It's an evil ghost. He said he's been living here for 1,000 years. As she spoke, she grabbed Song Shu's hand and hid behind him. Song Shu replied, There's no such thing as an evil ghost. It's a person in disguise. At the same time, his gaze fell on her interlocked fingers with his. He couldn't help but feel puzzled. Was this girl so innocent that she didn't have the concept of keeping a distance between men and women? But she didn't seem like this to other men other than Su Pu. So, does that mean she doesn't treat me as a man at all? At this moment, Chun said hatefully, This person should be the mastermind behind the scenes. He caused so many of our warriors to die an untimely death. We need to settle this debt with him. With that said, he drew his saber and rushed in the direction of the voice. Song Shu also pulled a man's little hand and followed. Who's playing tricks here? Sancer's voice could be heard from afar, followed by another scream. A heavy object fell heavily to the ground. A strange laughter came from the tunnel again. That voice repeated, I've been living here for 1,000 years, 1,000 years. Everyone who came and died. Sancer, a man exclaimed. She could tell that something had probably happened to her companion. Song Shu pulled her around a corner and saw that Sancer had already fallen to the ground. It was dark in the tunnel. A man might not be able to see clearly, but Song Shu's vision was as bright as day. He could naturally see that Sancer was bleeding from the corner of his mouth and that he was no longer breathing. On the other side, Elder Wu Sun and a few Mongolian soldiers surrounded a figure in the center. The Mongolian soldiers were all trembling. If it wasn't for Elder Wu Sun holding the line, they would have probably fled in all directions. A man let out a cry. If she wasn't leaning closely against Song Shu, she would have probably fainted from the shock. The figure in the center vaguely looked like a human. Under the illumination of the fire, this ghost was wearing a white robe. His face was covered in blood, and his white robe was also dripping with blood. He was extremely tall, at least 5 feet taller than normal person. Silent Night looked extremely horrifying. The ghost suddenly stretched out its hands. Its 10 fingernails were longer than its fingers, and its hands were covered in blood. The ghost cackled strangely and said in a shrill voice, I've been living in the labyrinth for 1,000 years, and I don't allow anyone to disturb me. How dare you guys block my way? Old man Wu Sun sneered, Stop pretending to be mysterious. Just as the ghost was about to mock them, his body suddenly stiffened and he fell heavily to the ground. Wu Sun walked over and tore off the blood-stained white robe on his body. He found a man who looked like a member of the Taiyin tribe lying on the ground. He was standing on 2 stilts. No wonder he was so tall. With a robe covering him, no one could see anything special about him. They would only subconsciously think that he was a tall ghost. At this time, everyone remembered the strange footprints they had seen before. It turned out that the stilts had stepped on the ground. What sorcery did you use? That person looked at Old Man Wu Sun in horror. Wu Sun laughed and said, "Aren't you an evil ghost? Are you afraid of demonic arts? Who are you? Who ordered you to deal with my Mongolian people? Ha! You Mongolian dogs are despicable and shameless. All of you deserve to die." That person gnashed his teeth and cursed. Old Man Wu Chun was furious. He took out his scimitar and was about to slash him, but he was stopped by Song Qing Shu. He wanted to find out his identity first. The commotion attracted the attention of that person. He noticed a man who was beside Song Qing Shu, and a hint of infatuation flashed in his eyes. "So beautiful. You are as beautiful as your mother when she was young." "No, your mother is also very beautiful now." A man was surprised. Hearing him mention her mother, and seeing that he was not a ghost, she gradually overcame the fear in her heart. "You know my mother. How could I not know her? Sigh, I almost became your father's woman." When the person said this, his tone was full of unwillingness and annoyance. "Why are you talking nonsense?" A man's face was red. She was very angry that the person had taken advantage of her mother. "I am not talking nonsense. My name is Varatzi. Have you heard of me?" That person looked at a man with eyes full of expectation. "Varatzi?" A trace of confusion flashed in a man's eyes. Then she suddenly remembered something and subconsciously said, "The bastard who wanted to steal my mother." As soon as she said this, a trace of embarrassment flashed on her face. "Sorry, that was my father's original words." Varatzi chuckled. "That old dog Churku. This is indeed his style. Did your mother ever mention me?" A man thought for a moment and shook her head. "I don't remember." Varatzi's expectant eyes were suddenly filled with disappointment, and then he fell into extreme anger. "That bitch didn't miss me at all. If I had known this, I would not have been so soft-hearted. I would have taken her life with a needle. If I can't get it, no one else can." A man was so angry that her face turned red. "Don't you dare scold my mother." Old Man Wu's son became impatient. "Are you two done? Don't try to get close to me. No one can save you this time." Varatzi sighed, but there was no fear in his eyes. "I should have died long ago. I have lived for so many years. Do you think I will be afraid?" After saying this, he looked at a man. "Are you afraid of me?" A man pursed her lips and did not answer. She just subconsciously hid behind Song Qing Shu. Varatzi looked at her and Song Qing Shu being intimate, and then looked at Old Man Wu Sunday. He suddenly laughed. "Are you friend with this old man?" Amin opened her mouth, but did not know how to answer. If she said yes, it would definitely be a lie, but if she said no, the kind-hearted her was worried that she would hurt the old man. After all, the old man had spoken up for her when Boru wanted to violate her. Seeing her expression, Varatzi understood and sneered. "That's why I said that little girls are easily deceived. You still think that this shameless man is your friend. Do you know that day in the tribe, he disguised himself as your father and ran into your tent? He almost raped your mother." "Ah." A man looked at Wu's son in disbelief. Could it be him that night? Wu's son did not care at all. There were no other people from the Taiyin tribe here, so he was not afraid of being exposed. He just coldly stared at Varatzi and said through gritted teeth, "You are the black-clothed man from that night?" The other party's poison needles had tormented him greatly. Varatzi laughed and said, "Even I did not obtain Yuli-Sien, yet you are a toad wanting to eat swan meat. How about it? My black blood needles taste good, right? You're seeking death." Old Man Wu's son flew into a rage. He was about to strike Varatzi's head with his palm, but he was stopped by Song Qing Shu. "What are you doing?" Wu's son looked at him with a vigilant expression. He has been in this labyrinth for many years, so he should be very familiar with it. Song Qing Shu lightly said. Chapter 2351. You are a bad person. How dare you humiliate my mother? A man's eyes were filled with anger. She pulled out her scimitar and was about to fight. Although she had a weak temperament, that was only when compared to the other Taiyin people. Compared to the noble ladies of Jiangnan, she was a woman from the grasslands. The spirit of martial arts was engraved in her bones. Unfortunately, she was facing one of the top figures in the world. Wu Sun merely glanced at her, and her entire body froze, unable to move at all. What kind of witchcraft is this? A man's beautiful face paled. At that moment, she had the same doubts as Varazzi. An ignorant commoner in the wilderness would not understand this old man's magical skills. Wu Sun snorted and reached out to touch her smooth face. He had wanted to do it for a long time, but could not find the opportunity. A man had never seen such a shameless person. She had thought that Borchu was bad enough, but he only wanted to bully her. This old man not only wanted to harm her mother, but also her. At the same time, he had designs on her and her mother. How could Allah not punish him? But now, she was powerless to resist and could only watch as the other person's dry and disgusting hand approached her. Just at this moment, a cold light flashed. Old man Wu Sun let out a strange cry and jumped back by one zhang. He looked at Song Qing-shu warily and said, "As expected, you still made a move. What is the meaning of this? Could it be that you are deliberately trying to oppose me?" When he touched man earlier, he had focused most of his attention on guarding against him. That was why he had managed to dodge the scimitar in time. Song Qing-shu reached out to massage man's body and quickly removed the seal on her body. He replied coldly, "I would like to ask you what is the meaning of this? What else could I want? Of course, I want to take back what belongs to me." Elder Wu Sun pointed at man. "The Taiyin tribe belongs to the princess. The princess bestowed me 30 beauties, and the most beautiful people in the entire Taiyin tribe are her and her mother. Therefore, these 2 women are mine. You." Man almost fainted from anger when she heard his words. But when she thought of the power of Mongolia, she wondered if this was the only ending for her and her mother. Father loved mother so much. How could he bear it? And Su Pu, with his mother's personality, she definitely wouldn't be willing to be humiliated. Thinking of that tragic fate, her body involuntarily trembled. At this moment, Song Qing-shu gently patted her hand, and she suddenly felt a sense of peace. At the side, Wu Chun was dumbfounded. He didn't expect Huajing to give him such a promise. Thinking that this was Huajing's fief, wouldn't it be his private property after they got married? This beautiful mother and daughter pair should have belonged to him. Song Qing-shu snorted coldly. Even if the princess promised you 30 beauties, she did not say which 30. What kind of person is the princess? She can always force married women to marry you. It's fine if Li Xian is married, but man isn't, right? Wu Sun tightly knit his brows. The other side's martial arts made him feel a sense of dread, so it seemed like he had to take his time. He would put Li Xian aside for now and wait for the Empress of Helen to gather an army to demand for her. He was still a 10,000 household. How could the Water Moon Great Sect and Taiyin tribe contend against the people under him? At this time, Wu Chun also came out to mediate. Great Sect, since it's like this, just give man to him. There is no need to hurt everyone's friendship for a woman. Although he was a bit greedy for man's beauty, he was clear that he was going to marry Huazheng and had no fate with this woman, so he might as well help her. After all, Wu Sun had a high status in Mongolia. If the Great Khan did not blame him, then forming an alliance with him would be beneficial to the future of his family. City. Hearing his words, man was filled with fear. After interacting with him for this period of time, she knew that the people with the highest status in this group of Mongolians were Wu Chun and Wu Sunday. The uncle beside her was only a highly skilled guest official and did not have any real power. If the 2 of them had the same opinion, then her fate was already sealed. Song Qing-shu knit his brows. If it was before when there were many people, then it would have been a bit difficult, but now that the Mongolian army had been completely wiped out, there were only a few people left. Of course, he wouldn't just watch as this kind little girl was bullied by that old pervert. He pulled man into his embrace and put his arm around her shoulders. He said, "Man is already my woman. I asked the great shaman to choose someone else." Man was suddenly pulled into the man's embrace. She was in a state of panic and shyness, but when she heard his words, she immediately understood that he was trying to protect her. Although she was pure and innocent, she was not stupid. Of course, she would not refute him at this moment, but her heart was filled with gratitude. Seeing Man nestling in his arms with a bashful expression, Wu Chun was dumbfounded. He thought that this guy was too fast. Wu Sun, on the other hand, felt as if his heart was bleeding. He faintly felt as if the top of his head was glowing with a green light. He could not help but grit his teeth and said, "How is this possible?" Her lover is obviously that young man called Su Pu. Song Qing-shu shrugged his shoulders and said, "Young love comes and goes quickly. How can a reckless boy like Su Pu be worthy of being entrusted with the rest of his life? A man naturally knows how to choose with a mature and steady man like me. Don't you think so?" A man knew that he was deliberately saying this, but she still felt ashamed in her heart. It was as if she had really done something wrong to Su Pu. However, seeing that everyone was staring at her, she could only nod imperceptibly and say, "Yes." Wu Sun felt as if his heart was about to explode. He had been eyeing the little white flower, but in the end, someone had beaten him to it. That kind of anger and frustration was simply indescribable. No wonder this guy had been running around by her side these past few days. It turned out that he had been planning this all along. Wu Chen's expression was also extremely interesting. However, he felt somewhat relieved in his heart. Previously, he had suspected that the Shuei Great Master had changed his temperament, but he did not expect that he was just playing tricks. That's right. How could a brat like Su Pu compare to the Shuei Great Master's skill in dealing with women? Looking at the girl's bashful expression, it seemed that the first soup had already been drunk. Song Qing-shu continued, "Great shaman, I'm sorry. I didn't know that you were also interested in her. Who told you not to say so earlier? Now that she has become my woman, it wouldn't be good for me to give her to you, would it?" Wu Sun was seething with anger. Just as he was about to explode, Wu Chan hurriedly stepped in to smooth things over. "Great shaman, since they are already asleep, let's just forget about it. After all, the most important thing right now is to find the treasure. The Great Khan is still waiting for our news. Afterward, I'll pick 30 beautiful girls from my fief and give them to you." Calm down, calm down. Why make a fuss over a woman?" Hearing his analysis, Wu Sun gradually calmed down. The task given to him by the Great Khan had not been completed, so it was indeed not a good time for internal strife. Moreover, if a conflict really broke out here, he might not be able to defeat the saber in the other party's hand. Shuei Great Master, just you wait. When we return to Helen City, see how I'll deal with you. How dare a mere guest minister steal my woman? Even if this Amon was not mine the first time, I'll definitely get my hands on her second and third times. And that maid of yours called Wind Lady, I'll definitely play with her until she's crippled and let you taste the taste of anger." Seeing that Wu Sun had acquiesced, Wu Chun walked over and lifted Viraki up from the ground. "Since you've been playing tricks in this underground palace, you must be very familiar with the terrain. Lead the way. If we can find the treasure, not only will we spare your life, we might even grant you the title of Qianhu. You also know that we Mongols are never stingy with our rewards. Even if we used to be enemies, as long as they work for us, we will not mistreat them." Viraki glared at Song Qing-shu with hatred. Obviously, he was extremely unhappy to know that the daughter of his first love had already given herself to this man. "I don't want a Qianhu. Just give me the Taiyin tribe." Chapter 2352. At this time, a man was nestled in Song Qing-shu's arms. Her pretty face was flushed, making her look even more beautiful. Wu Chen's heart raced when he saw her, and he sighed inwardly. Although Hua Zheng was also a beauty, she was still lacking compared to the beautiful and graceful girl in front of him. It could only be said that there was always a loss when it came to gains. Worried that looking at her would disturb his state of mind, Wu Chen quickly calmed himself down and said to Valrazzi, "In that case, lead the way." Valrazzi did not get up. Instead, he glared at Wu Sunday. "It's time to remove the restriction on my body. What did you do to me?" He had learned good martial arts in the Central Plains, so he naturally knew how to hit acupoints. However, he had not been hit just now, yet he could not move at all. It was really incredible. Wu Chen also looked at Wu Sunday, Great Shaman. "In my opinion, Why don't you remove the restriction first? Wu Sun frowned and said in a deep voice, you can remove it, but you must hand over the poisoned needles in your body. Although the other party's martial arts were good, he and the Shui West sect were here, so there was no need to worry. However, the poison needles were too insidious. If he suddenly shot them at close range, he might not be able to defend himself. It had not been easy for him to force the broken needles out of his body. He did not want to have a taste of this again. Valrazzi was naturally unwilling, but he did not need his consent. Wu Chen gave a look, and some Mongolian soldiers searched his body and found the poison needles. After a series of traps, just now, only 5 Mongolian soldiers were still alive. Soon, the soldiers searched his body. Looking at the poison needles as thin as a cow's hair, Wu Sun's face twitched. These needles had caused him so much trouble during this period of time. He was so angry that he slammed his palm against the needles and broke them into pieces. Only then did he completely relax. The restriction on Valrazzi's body was removed, and he led the way with a gloomy face. Wu Chun did not dare to completely trust him, so he let him walk in the middle of the group. His subordinates would scout ahead, and he only needed to point the way. As expected of someone who had been playing tricks in this maze for many years, Valrazzi was indeed familiar with the way. The group turned here and there, but they did not encounter any more traps. Finally, he led the group to a staircase and said, there are no treasures in other parts of the maze. If there really are treasures, they should be at the end of this staircase. Why is it so dark? Wu Chun frowned, sucking in a breath of cold air as he stared at the dark tunnel before him. Every step was made from giant rocks, and the whole thing spiraled upwards. Everyone was clearly holding torches, but the air around them seemed to be a little strange. The light could not reach far and could only illuminate a few inches around them. Any further, and the light would be greatly weakened. He was worried that there was a trap on the wall, so he cautiously raised the torch and came to the wall. Only then did he see that there was nothing unusual on the wall. I don't know either. This place has been like this since I found it, Valrazzi replied. Old man Wu Sun frowned. Since there might be treasures here, why have you not taken them out after so many years? With this said, everyone looked at Valrazzi in the middle with vigilance. Valrazzi replied in a muffled voice, this staircase is very long, and I haven't reached the end, even after checking several times. Then again, I only want Li Xian. Everything else is just floating clouds to me. Wu Sun was stunned at first, but then he broke out in laughter. I never thought that you would be such an affectionate person. Ha, ha, ha. Relax. As long as you make a great merit this time, the Great Khan will give you the Taiyin tribe, and Li Xian will be yours. Although he said this, he was sneering inside. Once I find the treasure, I'll take care of you. So how could I give Li Xian to you? Thinking of Li Xian's mature and plump body, he thought that if it wasn't for you that night, I would have already obtained what I wanted. His gaze landed on a man at the side. Seeing that she was holding hands with the Shui, you great master, inseparable and intimate, he felt as if he had eaten shit. This beautiful mother and daughter pair had actually been taken by another man before him. 135 Chinese hearing his words. A man's face turned red with anger. Just as she was about to explode, she remembered that Song Qing-shu had fallen out with the other side because of her. She didn't want to make things difficult for him, so she endured it. A hint of excitement flashed across Valrazzi's face. He glanced greedily at Alman's face before he turned around and began to lead the way. Wu Chun gave a signal with his eyes, and 2 Mongolian soldiers approached him from both sides. It was obvious that they were guarding him against any mishaps. They also arranged for people to carve marks on the stone steps that everyone had walked on, so that they wouldn't be able to find the way back. After walking for a while, the group finally understood what Valrazzi meant when he said the staircase was very long. The group walked for the time it took for an incense stick to burn. Logically speaking, most of the stairs should have reached the end by now, but looking around, there was still an endless staircase extending into the darkness. It was as if everyone was walking on the road to hell. What's going on? Wu Chun grabbed Valrazzi and asked. Valrazzi replied, didn't I say it before? I've come here several times to check, but I've never reached the end. What's the longest you've walked in the past? Wu Chen asked. About an hour, Varatzi replied. Everyone frowned when they heard this. An hour was not long, but it was not short either. They had no choice but to continue exploring deeper. After all, the purpose of their trip was to find the treasure. After walking for another incense stick, their surroundings were still pitch black. The wide stone steps spread out and disappeared into the darkness ahead. The repeated darkness gave off an inexplicably strange and oppressive feeling. A man subconsciously shrank into Song Qingshu's arms. "Uncle, I'm scared." Song Qingshu could feel her delicate body trembling slightly. He thought to himself, "This girl is really defenseless against me. Does she think of me as her godfather? It's okay, I'm here." Even though he was complaining in his heart, he still had to comfort her. "We can't go on like this," Wu Chan said in a deep voice. "Great shaman, can you use your psychic power to check out the surroundings and see what's going on?" Wu Sun nodded. He was a little scared to keep walking like this. He sat down cross-legged, closed his eyes, and spread out his psychic power. Who knew that not long after, he would open his eyes in shock. "Strange, the environment here is too strange. My psychic power can only extend up to 10 feet. Any further, and it seems like it's being absorbed by something." Beside him, Song Qingshu had the same feeling. In fact, he had already used his qi to investigate, but he could not find anything at all. Could it be that these stone steps were made of a special material that could absorb psychic power and qi? After thinking for a while, he approached the wall with a torch and pressed his palm on it. As expected, his conjecture was confirmed. He told everyone what he had found, and they were all shocked. "This place is so strange. Why don't we go back the way we came?" someone suggested. However, Wu Chun immediately rejected the idea. "No, we've sacrificed so much to get here. We can't just go back like this." Others might be fine after going back, but he, the commander-in-chief, had not achieved anything. Instead, he had lost many soldiers and generals. The Great Khan might not kill him for the sake of the Hangjara clan, but his future would be over, and there would be no hope of marrying the princess. Chapter 2353. Song Qingshu was a little hesitant. He naturally did not want to work for these people, but with Shuiyue's status, there was no reason for him to refuse. "Fine, I'll go ahead and explore first, then come back and tell them that there's no way out lest they really find some treasure." He told Amon to stay where he was and let the Mongolian soldiers protect him while he quickly went up the stairs in front of him. Previously, when he was traveling with them, he had some scruples, but now that he was alone, there was no need for him to hide anymore. He used his lightness skill and ran up the stairs as if he was flying. With his cultivation, there was really no trap that could hurt him. However, although he was fast, the stairs seemed to be endless. He walked for a long time, but it was still endless darkness. Suddenly, he stopped because he could faintly hear some movement in front of him. Is there really someone lying in ambush here to deal with the Mongolians? The thought flashed in Song Qingshu's mind, and he quietly hid in the shadows. The sound was getting closer, and he could already hear the conversation. "What the hell is this place? Those insects just now are too strong. At least there are no such insects here. Everyone be careful. There might be danger in the darkness." Hearing the faint conversation of a few men and women, Song Qingshu only felt that the woman's voice was a little familiar, but he could not remember who it was. He only saw it clearly when the few people came closer. So it's her. The person who came was dressed in a yellow robe, and there was even a green feather in her hair, which made her look as delicate as a spring flower, as beautiful as the morning clouds. Who else could it be but Hua Qingtong? Beside her were a few warriors from the Muzhuoluan tribe, and they all looked a little disheveled, as if they had just escaped. Why is she here? Why are there so few people around her? Song Qingshu immediately felt a headache. One must know that Hua Qingtong led the Muzhuoluan tribe and Galdan's allied army to annihilate the Mongolians. Logically speaking, she should be leading the army to search for the fish that escaped the net. So why was she here alone? With just these few guards, Wu Sun alone could take care of them. If they continued forward, Once they encountered Wu Chun, Wu Sun, and the others, they would immediately turn from hunters to prey. He did not want that to happen. I've lived here for 1,000 years. Anyone who disturbs me must die. It was inconvenient for Song Qing-shu to show his face as a member of the Watermoon clan, so he had no choice but to follow Volratzi's example and scare them away to prevent them from running into each other. The few soldiers from the Luan tribe screamed in fear. Hua Qingtong, on the other hand, was calmer. Who's playing tricks here? Song Qing-shu was secretly impressed. Hua Qingtong was indeed a heroine. In such a strange situation, she was actually not afraid at all. However, he could not let her be like this today. He did not waste any time and directly attacked with a few gusts of wind from his fingers. The knives in everyone's hands, including hers, were instantly broken. Get lost. I have been sleeping here for 1,000 years. Don't disturb my peace. Hua Qingtong's expression changed. Regardless of whether the thing in the darkness was a human or a ghost, it was not something that they could fight against. Since the other party had the intention to let them live, how could she bite the bullet and send herself to death? Sorry to disturb you, Senior. We'll leave now. She cupped her hands and hurriedly called for the guards beside her to retreat along the path they came from. Seeing them leave, Song Qing-shu heaved a sigh of relief. If he continued forward, he would inevitably catch up to them again. He hesitated for a moment, then turned around and walked back. He wanted to go back and tell Wei-chun and the rest that there were no treasures here and let them leave first. On the way back, Song Qing-shu suddenly frowned. He could not help but stop and look back. Looking at the wide stone steps that extended into the distance, he did not know why, but he had a strange feeling in his heart. However, he could not tell what was strange about it. He shook his head and chased these distracting thoughts out of his mind. He continued walking back, but along the way, he could not help but think about the strangeness. Finally, he returned to the previous place. Just as he was about to say that there were no treasures ahead, his expression suddenly changed. This was because he saw Hua Qingtong kneeling in front of Wei-chun with a knife on her neck. The guards beside her were all lying in a pool of blood. A few Mongolian soldiers had also died. Now, there were only 2 left. What's going on? Song Qing-shu could not help but ask. Hadn't he seen Hua Qingtong run in the other direction? How had she appeared here? Wei-chun laughed loudly. Speaking of which, this is really the blessing of the heavens. We were waiting for you here, but this woman suddenly charged over. Ha! I was originally worried that we would be punished by the Great Khan after this crushing defeat, but now that we've captured the yellow robe of green feathers, the remaining people of the Muzhulan tribe are nothing more than clay chickens and pottery dogs. Ha ha! We've taken care of the Great Khan's greatest worry. All of us have done a great service. Clearly, he was extremely excited. When he spoke, there was a lot of laughter mixed in. Hua Qingtong turned her head to the side, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Clearly, she was not calm at all. What the hell was going on? Song Qing-shu was a bit confused. He had tried everything to avoid this situation, so why had he still ended up like this? Suddenly, he noticed something else. There was no sign of Amon anywhere. He hurriedly asked, "Where's Amon?" A trace of embarrassment appeared on Wei-chun's smile. He stammered, "Just now, not long after you left, Volratzi suddenly attacked. He grabbed Amon and ran into the darkness. We chased after him, but he seemed to have disappeared into thin air. We were worried that you wouldn't be able to find him when you came back, so we could only wait for you here." Wasun also nodded. That Volratzi is really treacherous. On the surface, he was cooperating with us, but in fact, he had always been thinking of betraying us. It's our fault for being careless. 2 of the soldiers protecting Amon fell into his hands. What? Song Qing-shu was furious. With the cultivation of the great shaman, Volratzi is no match for you. Wasun smiled awkwardly. It happened so suddenly that we didn't have time to react. We didn't expect him to go after Amon. If I had more time, I would have been able to subdue him, but for some reason, he seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Then, we ran into Hua Qingtong and the others, so we had to stop. Song Qing-shu was too lazy to listen to his nonsense. He directly used his lightness skill to chase after Varazzi. This time, he did not hold back at all. He directly used the unique skill of so close, yet worlds apart, and quickly searched for traces of Amon along the way. Hua Qingtong's identity was very important, so she would not be in danger there for the time being. However, the same could not be said for Amon. With Varazzi's infatuation with the mother and daughter, it was hard to guarantee that he would not kill her. He really did not want to see such a kind and trusting girl end up in any miserable situation. He ran all the way, retreating along the stone walls, but there was no trace of her. After running for a long time, he suddenly saw a flame in front of him. He could not help but be overjoyed. He finally found her. Chapter 23:54. Song Qing-shu also felt a chill run down his back. He had clearly been going downstairs, so why did he end up above them? His first reaction was to look at old man Wu Sun, thinking that he was hallucinating, but he immediately rejected this possibility. Although Wu Sun's spiritual energy was vast, it was still not enough to deal with him. Not to mention that Hua Qingtong and the others were running in the opposite direction, but they ended up in this direction. It couldn't be Wu Sun's influence, right? It seemed like this staircase was a closed loop. No wonder he could never reach the end. After saying the guess in his heart, everyone else's first reaction was that it was impossible. Even Hua Qingtong forgot about being captured, and his eyes were filled with doubt. It was hard to imagine that this kind of staircase would appear in this world. Wu Sun did not believe it either. His relationship with the Water Moon sect was not good, so he was worried that Wu Sun was deliberately deceiving him. So he led a Mongolian soldier back. Song Qing-shu and Wu Chun stayed where they were. They looked at the captive Hua Qingtong on the side, and then at Wu Chen's unguarded appearance. If they made a move to save him now, no one would stop them at all. However, he gave up on this idea. Hua Qingtong would be fine for a while, so he would just act according to the situation. With his martial arts, even if Wu Sun was here, he would not be able to stop him. At this time, he was even more worried about Oman, not knowing how she was. On the other hand, Vara had escaped from the strange staircase with Armin through the secret passage. Armin kept struggling and punching Vara. "Put me down. Put me down." It was a pity that she was too weak, and hitting him was like a lover hitting his chest. Not only could he not break free, it even stimulated Varaki's bestial nature. Thinking that the Mongolians were already trapped in the maze, and it was impossible for them to catch up, he threw Oman to the ground. "Humph, Yili Xian was blind in the past. I never thought that her daughter would also be blind, actually choosing this kind of middle-aged man as her lover. Who cares? You're not allowed to scold my mother." Oman stubbornly raised her head and angrily stared at the bad person in front of her. Looking at the young girl's charming face, Varaki couldn't help thinking of Yili Xian when she was young. It really was similar. Back then, everyone played together happily, but it was a pity that she chose Che Urku. At the thought that the girl in front of him was Churku's daughter, a trace of ruthlessness flashed in Varazzi's eyes. "Humph, you two women have eyes but can't see, but in the end, you will be mine." After saying that, he began to tear Amon's clothes. Amon cried out in alarm and struggled desperately to call for help. With a crisp crack, Valraki tore off half of her sleeve, revealing her fair arm. "Bastard!" Suddenly, a furious roar rang out nearby, and a figure pounced over. Varazzi was greatly alarmed, thinking that it was the Water Moon sect that had caught up to him. However, when he saw the other party's appearance, he couldn't help but burst into laughter, and here I was wondering who it was. "So it's you, brat. You're overestimating yourself." The person who had come was the previously missing Su Pu. He happened to see Valrazzi about to rape Amon, so his body exploded and he immediately rushed over, attacking his enemy without any regard for his life. Unfortunately, although he was considered brave in the tribe, compared to Valrazzi, his martial arts were still much worse. He was quickly kicked to the ground. Valrazzi laughed. "Brat, you only have brute force, but your martial arts are too bad and your brain is not good either. If you had waited just a little longer and waited for me to enter Amon's body and sneak attack her from behind, I wouldn't have survived." Supu bit his lips so hard that they almost bled, shameless. Ignoring the injuries on his body, he climbed up from the ground and desperately pounced forward again. If he had calmed down and taken it slow, Valrazzi wouldn't have been able to knock him down in a short period of time. Unfortunately, he was too angry and his attacks were violent. His body was full of flaws, so he was quickly knocked to the ground again. Seeing her lover covered in injuries, Amon's heart was broken. She hurriedly shouted, "Supu, don't worry about me. Go find Uncle for help." Valrazzi clicked his tongue. "Did you hear that, brat? You're still risking your life for me, but I only have other men in my heart. I don't like you at all." Amon's face turned red with anger. "You're talking nonsense." Valrazzi coldly snorted. "I'm talking nonsense? Didn't you just admit that you're already that Japanese devil's woman? Look at how intimate you were in my arms. You're really a fickle woman like your mother." Supu looked at his lover in disbelief, his eyes wide open. On the way here, he had always felt that the Water Moon sect was up to no good. At the same time, he was also dissatisfied with his lover's attitude towards him. He never thought that his worries would really come true. Seeing his reaction, Valrazzi smiled with satisfaction. "Brat, just watch from the side. Maybe when I'm done, I'll let you have a good time too." At the same time, he secretly thought that there would be a day when he would ruthlessly take Elysienne in front of Cherku. Thinking of that scene, Valrazzi became even more excited. When he was about to throw himself at Amon again, a meteor hammer suddenly flew over. Valrazzi dodged it with a flip, and the meteor hammer hit the stone wall on the side, sending rubble flying. Then a fair-skinned and beautiful girl jumped out and caught the meteor hammer that bounced back. She then continued to attack Valrazzi. A thin and weak girl was wielding a mighty and domineering meteor hammer as a weapon. The contrast between the two was too strong. Supu's eyes lit up when he saw this, and he shouted excitedly, "Axiu, be careful!" This girl was Li Wenxiu. She was waving the meteor hammer at Valrazzi's acupuncture points. Valrazzi was flustered at first, but he quickly calmed down. The other side's hammer technique clearly hadn't reached a high level yet, so he raised his left hand, and Li Wenxiu subconsciously dodged to the right. Who would have thought that this was a feint? His right palm came down, and with a pu sound, it hit her left shoulder. Li Wenxiu stumbled and fell to the ground. "I never thought that father's luck with women would be this good today. Another little beauty has come." Valrazzi began to laugh. Although the girl in front of him wasn't as beautiful as Amon, she was still a beauty. At this time, a cold laugh came from the stone room, a trivial diversion. "Do you really think you are invincible in the world?" Valrazzi's expression changed. "Who is it scram out here for me?" His move just now was indeed a diversion, but he didn't know why the other side had seen through it. Chapter 2355. Noticing his gaze, Limacho's eyes turned cold. "Where are you looking?" Valrazzi laughed. "I thought I was unlucky enough today. Who knew that there would be a turn of events? Not only are there two little beauties, but there is also a great beauty. I don't know if my body can take it. You're courting death." Limacho hated people who disrespected her the most, so she was merciless. Valrazzi's smile froze because he didn't expect this woman's voice to be so sweet. He hurriedly met it with a palm. When the two palms met, he screamed and quickly retreated. "There's poison in the palm." Valrazzi looked at the palm that had turned black and couldn't help but be aghast. Limacho's face showed a hint of conceit. "How is it? My 5 poison divine palm is not bad, right?" 5 poison divine palm. "You're Scarlet Serpent Fairy Limacho?" Valrazzi's expression changed. He remembered many legends about this woman. A few years ago, she had turned the martial arts world upside down and was a well-known female devil. "You actually know me?" Limacho was a little surprised. She didn't expect that there would be someone in the desert thousands of miles away who knew her. Valrazzi was silent. When he failed to fight for Elysienne, he ran to the Central Plains to learn martial arts. He could be considered a person of Jianghu, so how could he not have heard of the Scarlet Serpent Fairy's reputation? If he still had the black blood god needles on him, he might still have the confidence to fight, but all the poison needles have been taken away by the Mongolians. Facing this female devil, he was afraid that it would be a disaster. In a moment, he analyzed the strength of the enemy and himself. He grabbed a man on the ground and threw him at the other side. He quickly ran to the stone door on the side. Limacho shook the horsetail whisk in her hand and gently wrapped it around a man's waist. She raised her left hand, and the soul-freezing silver needle shot out. Valrazzi screamed and fell to the ground. Soul-freezing silver needle. Valrazzi was an expert in using hidden weapons, so he naturally knew what he had been hit with. Thinking of the 5 poison divine palm, and now the soul-freezing silver needle, he was really unlucky today. It's good that, Limacho tiptoed and lightly came to his side, holding a pill in her hand. The soul-freezing silver needles are extremely poisonous. You should know that this is the antidote. As long as you tell me how to break the stairs, I will give you the antidote. A man and Li Wenxiu on the side widened their eyes, secretly admiring her qigong. Her posture was incomparably elegant. It was really enviable. At this moment, Limacho's hand that was holding the antidote was as smooth as jade, and her fingers were slender. Normally, Livraki would have teased her, but now he did not have the courage to appreciate it. Have you surrendered to the Mongols? Limacho calmly said, That has nothing to do with you. Just tell me what I want to know. Valraki remained silent. He knew that Limacho had always been cruel and merciless. Even if he said something, she might not let him go, not to mention that he had just offended her. Limacho frowned and coldly snorted. If you don't say it, then don't blame me for being impolite. As a demoness that made Jianghu tremble with fear, how could she not have some methods of torturing people? Just as she was about to make a move, suddenly a black shadow leaped out and almost instantly appeared behind her. Limacho was shocked and hastily dodged to the side. The Qigong of the ancient tomb sect was originally the best in Jianghu. Not to mention, with the help of Song Qing-shu, she had also practiced the ancient tomb sect's highest heart sutra, Jade Maiden Heart Sutra. Compared to before, her martial arts had improved greatly. Can't you net, huh? The Black Shadow clearly did not expect that his confident attack would miss, but his reaction was also very fast. His palm smoothly swept across and still covered all the major acupuncture points on her body. At this moment, Limacho's beautiful face turned pale. Her martial arts were very high, and with the addition of the soul-freezing silver needles and the 5 poison divine palm, as well as her proficiency in actual combat, in Jianghu, only the 5 uniques could defeat her. Otherwise, she would not have been able to run amok in Jianghu for so many years. After practicing the Jade Maiden Heart Sutra, her confidence was unprecedentedly high. She reckoned that even if she were to fight against the 5 uniques, she would still be able to put up a fight. However, she did not know where this black shadow came from, but he actually made her feel powerless. She had only experienced this kind of feeling twice in her life. The first time was when she faced Song Qing-shu, that devil, but the 2 of them did not really fight, so it was ineffective. The second time was when she faced the Eastern heretic Huang Yaoshi. At that time, it could be said that she was completely subdued. Huang Yaoshi did not even need to make a move. Just the melody of the rising tide almost made her fall into qi deviation. But at that time, she relied on her wit and combat experience to successfully escape from her opponent. This time, she could not help but feel powerless. Logically speaking, her martial arts had improved a lot, and she could even escape from Huang Yaoshi. But now, she felt powerless. Could it be that this person's martial arts was much higher than Huang Yaoshi's? But how could this be possible? Thoughts flew in her mind, but her hands did not stop. 3 soul-freezing silver needles shot out without leaving a trace. In the dim environment of the maze, it was almost undetectable. She only saw the person's hand slightly raise, forming a black hole-like thing. After the soul-freezing silver needles shot out, they disappeared without a trace. Limacho's pupils shrank slightly. Before she could react, she felt a numbness in her shoulder. Her major acupuncture point had been sealed by the other party, and she could not move. On the other side, Wu Sun did not believe it. He personally led his people to walk around, and, as expected, he came back from behind the crowd. The crowd's hearts immediately sank. Doesn't that mean we can't go back the way we came? Wu Chan swallowed his saliva, obviously very nervous. This place is too strange. Just now, I went back, but I still came back, Old Man Wu's son said with a frown. Wu Chin's voice trembled a little. This place can't really be haunted, right? He could not help but be shocked. Going down like this, only to come back from above. Go up and come back from below. The endless loop was really beyond the imagination of ordinary people. It was more like the legendary ghost hitting the wall. Even Old Man Wu's son was a little uncertain. He was the great shaman of Mongolia, and it could be said that he believed in ghosts and gods more than others. Hua Qingtong, who was at the side, sneered, "You are the higher-ups of Mongolia, and yet you still believe in ghosts and gods." Wu Chan hurriedly looked at her. Could it be that Miss Hua can see through the mystery? He knew that Hua Qingtong had always been resourceful, and maybe she already knew something. Hua Qingtong's face turned slightly red. Although I can't see through it, I also understand that this is clearly a brilliant formation. Think carefully, and you will be able to find a way to break it. She still had an army outside, and as long as she went out, she would have the hope of escaping. Only Song Qingshu was silent. Why did the characteristics of this ladder seem so familiar the more he looked at it? It was like the soul suspending ladder mentioned in Ghost Blows Out the Light. The soul suspending ladder was also known as the Penrose ladder. It was a geometric paradox proposed by the British mathematician Penrose in the 20th century. It referred to a ladder that always went up or down, but never reached the end. On this ladder, it was never possible to find the highest point or the lowest point. However, in theory, such a ladder could not be achieved in three-dimensional space. It was only possible in a higher dimensional space. Chapter 2356. He roughly remembered the method to break through the soul suspending ladder in Ghost Blows Out the Light, but the book did not explain how it was achieved. The book could vaguely explain this part, but he had to understand it after seeing it with his own eyes. It was theoretically impossible to construct the Penrose stairs in three-dimensional space, but the stairs in front of him could not be faked, so there must be some ingenious way to achieve this trick. Although there were all kinds of magical martial arts in this world, they generally followed the laws of science. However, when he thought of the venerated Ming, the 1,000-year-old monster, Song Qingshu became a little uncertain. He took the torch to the wall to check and carefully looked at each stone step. He had found it strange before, as each stone step was too big. Now he finally understood. Wu Chun and Wu Sun were in a state of panic, but Hua Qingtong keenly noticed the change in his expression. You know what's going on? Song Qingshu pointed at the stone slabs above. Didn't you notice that each step is too long? Everyone nodded subconsciously. In fact, they had also noticed that the stone slabs on each step were very wide. They were a few meters long horizontally and a few meters wide vertically. They did not know how much larger they were than normal stairs, but they did not think too much about it. Is there a problem with these stairs? Hua Qingtong asked curiously. Song Qingshu replied, Actually, it's easy to explain that no matter if you go up or down, you will never reach the end of the stairs. That is, you think you're going up and down the stairs, but you are actually walking on the same level. How is that possible? Elder Wu's son raised his doubts on the spot. After all, he had just walked it himself. He ran to the space between the two steps and pointed at the difference in height. There's clearly a difference between up and down here. So how can they be on the same level? That's just an optical illusion, Song Qingshu explained. Each stone slabs are not horizontal, but tilted in one direction, causing one side of the stone slabs to be higher and the other lower. This way, when connected to the higher side of the next stone step, it forms the illusion of going up and down. It's just that the stone slabs are too big and it's too dark here, so it's difficult for everyone to notice that each stone slab is actually uneven. Hearing his analysis, everyone's heart skipped a beat. They hurriedly took out their tools to measure it. It was indeed so. They just did not think of this before, but it was not difficult to measure whether the stairs were horizontal or not. Everyone clicked their tongues. This mechanism is too intricate. To think that the Gaochang country had such a skilled craftsman. It's a work of the gods. Huichen too was overjoyed. He patted Song Qingshu's shoulder and said, "The great sects are truly insightful. If we can find the treasure this time, we'll definitely report it to the Great Khan, and you'll be the first to be credited." However, Hu Qingtong could not help but glance at Song Qingshu. He thought to himself that the Mongolians were really full of talents. Even a random guest expert had such knowledge. The future of the wooden table Luan tribe was getting darker. At this time, Song Qingshu was thinking. If he was the one designing it, he could design it like a Mobius strip. A normal strip of paper had two sides, and an ant crawled on it. If it wanted to crawl all the way on both sides, it had to cross the edge of the paper. However, if a strip of paper was twisted 180 degrees and the two ends were glued together to form a paper loop, then the paper loop would only have one side, and the ant could crawl all over the curved surface without crossing the edge. In this labyrinth, some of the connections could be made into long and narrow robber's holes to confuse people's sense of direction. This way, people would unknowingly walk on the same flat surface and would never be able to get out. Now that we know the mechanism here, how do we break it? Huichen's question broke his train of thought. Song Qingshu pointed to both sides of the wall. If I'm not wrong, there must be a fork in the wall or a mechanism door. It's so dark here, and the surroundings are made of light-absorbing materials. Other than making it difficult for us to discover the problem of the stairs, it's also to prevent us from seeing the mechanism on the wall. Hearing his words, the few of them hurriedly ran to check along the way. Only Song Qingshu stayed behind to watch over Hu Qingtong. Seeing that she was still kneeling on the ground, he stretched out his hand to help her up. How can I find a chance to release her? Song Qingshu felt a headache. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he didn't want to kill her to silence her. Thank you. Hu Qingtong curiously surveyed this Japanese. Back then, she had heard of his deeds in Xingqing Manor. It seemed that he was beaten up by Fu Kalen of Goryeo and fled without a fight. At that time, she felt some contempt for him. But now, it seemed that he was completely different from the rumors. At this moment, cheers erupted from afar. Found it. Song Qingshu brought Hu Qingtong over and discovered that there was a very concealed fork in the wall. Only one person could pass through at a time. In such a dark environment, if one didn't know the principle behind it and deliberately search for it, it would be impossible for them to find this place. The group slowly advanced along the fork. After walking for about several tens of zhang, the view before them suddenly widened. A gigantic stone door appeared before them. From its appearance, it looked like a warehouse. 118 Huichun was overjoyed. We finally found the treasure. This place was so well hidden, and there was even a ghost labyrinth soul staircase guarding the front. If this wasn't a treasure chamber, what else could it be? Huisun also had an agitated look on his face. However, he was much more cautious. He first used his mental energy to scan the surroundings, and after ascertaining that there were no ambushes, he followed them in. Song Qingshu's gaze sharpened. He noticed a shiny object on the side of the path. That was Amon's head ornament. However, now that things had come to this, he didn't know where Amon was. He could only search for her after he was done here. Where's the treasure? Where's the treasure? Huichen's angry roar came from inside. Song Qingshu hurriedly followed in to investigate. He discovered that the stone room was filled with tables, chairs, beds, mosquito nets, many books, ghost sets, 7-string zither, stoves, bowls, plates, mirrors, and other common objects of the Central Plains. However, there was no gold or jewelry. There are stone tablets here. Huisun discovered 2 gigantic stone tablets and pointed to the wall. There are also murals. Song Qingshu went over to take a look. There were many Chinese characters carved on the stone tablets, but most of them were other strange characters that he couldn't recognize. Fortunately, Hu Qingtong had lived in the western regions for a long time and could recognize the Kazakh language. He slowly read out the characters on the stone tablets. It turned out that this labyrinth was built during the reign of Emperor Taizong of the Tang dynasty. This area was where the Gaochang Kingdom was located during the Tang Dynasty. At that time, Gaochang was a large country in the western regions. It was rich in resources and powerful. During the reign of Emperor Taizong of the Tang Dynasty, the king of Gaochang was called Zhu Wentai. The Tang Dynasty sent an emissary to Gaochang, telling them to abide by many Han customs. Zhu Wentai said to the emissary, "Eagles fly in the sky, pheasants perch on the ground, cats roam in the hall, mice hide in their burrows. Each has its own place. How can we not breed evil?" What he meant was, although you are fierce eagles flying in the sky, we are pheasants hiding in the bushes. Although you are cats walking around the hall, we are mice hiding in the hole and chirping. You can't do anything to us. Everyone lives their own lives. Why must you force us to abide by your Han customs? Emperor Taizong was furious when he heard this. He thought that they were barbaric and did not obey the emperor. Therefore, he sent General Hou Junji to suppress them. Zhu Wentai knew that the Tang army was powerful. He decided to defend and not fight. Therefore, he gathered a large number of people and built a maze in a very secret place. If the capital could not be defended, there would be a place to retreat. At that time, Gaochang was rich and powerful. Many skilled craftsmen from the western regions were gathered here. The maze was built in a very strange and winding way. It was prepared to hide all the country's rare and precious treasures in the palace. Zhu Wentai thought that even if the Tang army attacked the maze, they might not be able to find me. Hou Junji had learned the art of war from Li Jing and was good at using troops. Along the way, he crossed the desert with irresistible force. When Zhu Wentai heard that the Tang army was coming, he was scared to death. His son, Zhu Jisheng, became the king. Hou Junji led the army to attack the city. After a few battles, the Gaochang army was defeated. The Tang army had a kind of siege vehicle. It was 10 feet tall. Because it was as tall as a bird's nest, it was called the nest carriage. The nest carriage was pushed to the edge of the city. The soldiers looked down from above and threw stones and arrows. It was difficult for the Gaochang army to resist. Zhu Jisheng did not have time to escape into the maze. He did not have time to move his treasures. The capital had been breached, and he could only surrender. Gaochang was founded by Zhu Jia. It lasted for a total of 134 years. It died in the 14th year of Zhengwan. At that time, the territory was 800 miles from east to west and 500 miles from north to south. It was a big country in the western region. Hou Junji captured King Zhu Jisheng, the civil and military officials, and the heroes of the big families. When he returned to Chang, and Emperor Taizong said that the Gaochang country did not accept the Han culture and did not know the benefits of the Chinese cultural relics. Therefore, he gave a large number of Han books, clothes, utensils, and musical instruments to Gaochang. The people of Gaochang said in private, "Pheasants can't fly like eagles, mice can't meow like cats. No matter how good the Chinese people's things are, we Gaochang savages don't like them." The books and cultural relics bestowed by Tang Taizong, all kinds of tools, as well as the statues of Buddha, Confucius, Taoism's Lao Jun, and so on, were all placed in the maze. Nobody took a second look at them. The stone tablet recorded the events of that year in words, while the murals on the wall depicted the battle situation of that year in real life. Song Qing-shu then understood that the maze was built by the Gaochang country as a refuge. At the same time, it was used to deal with the Tang dynasty. No wonder the mechanisms in the maze were so powerful. Unfortunately, it was useless like the Maginot Line. There are no treasures. There are no treasures. Chen almost went crazy when he learned the whole story. He had lost many soldiers this time. He thought that he could make up for his mistakes if he found the treasures, but it was all for naught. He was angry and scared when he thought of this. He pulled out his sword and slashed at the pictures on the murals to vent the negative emotions in his heart. Who knew that as he slashed, a figure in the murals suddenly reached out and grabbed his neck. Chen's mouth gurgled. He wanted to call for help, but could not. Ghost! The remaining Mongolian soldiers beside him were scared out of their wits. The scene in front of them was too horrifying. The person on the mural had come to life and even reached out his hand. Even with their bravery, they were scared out of their wits. They turned around and ran. Chapter 23:57. Song Qingshu's scalp felt numb. Could it be that he had really encountered a 1,000-year-old ghost? However, after the initial panic, he quickly calmed down. This blurry figure was most likely an impersonator, so he took out the water moon saber and slashed at the arm. The figure waved its hand, and Song Qingshu felt a strong force on the saber. The saber in his hand almost flew out of his grip, and he could not help but be shocked. Because he was worried that he would be exposed, he subconsciously used the level of the Water Moon sect. Originally, with the martial arts of the Water Moon sect, it was more than enough to deal with most situations, but he did not expect that this fellow, who he did not know, was actually so powerful. The figure took advantage of his shock and directly grabbed Wu Chun and threw him over. Song Qingshu did not dare to be careless, worried that the figure had used hidden force on the other party, so he gently caught Wu Chun. In the end, he found that Wu Chen's head was hanging weakly to one side, and blood was flowing from the corner of his mouth. Obviously, his neck had been broken. The black figure rushed to the other side like lightning, grabbed Hu Qingtong, and left. Song Qingshu could not help but glare at Wu Sun angrily. "Why didn't you make a move?" Wu Sun was also dumbfounded. "I made a move, but he did not respond to my mental strength." Song Qingshu frowned. At this moment, he did not care about anything else and hurriedly chased after the figure. Previously, he had accidentally lost on man. This time, he could not let Hu Qingtong be lost under his eyes. The black figure was extremely fast. Even though it was carrying a person, Song Qingshu did not hold back anymore. He pushed his speed to the limit, and after a while, the distance between them was getting closer. Seeing that he could not escape, the black figure suddenly stopped and threw Hu Qingtong to one side. Then, he turned around and looked at Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu did not dare to be careless, and stopped to be on full alert. The black figure in front of him was indeed a person, but his whole body was covered in a black robe, and he could not see his face clearly. "You are not a ghost," the person snorted. "Unfortunately, you are about to become a ghost." As soon as he finished speaking, he pounced at Song Qingshu. As he attacked, the surrounding light distorted, as if there was an invisible force field affecting the surrounding air. Song Qingshu found it difficult to breathe. Now that things had come to this, he did not dare to hold back his strength. He focused his mind and slashed at the darkness in front of him. This time, he did not imitate the bladesmanship of the Water Moon Great Sect. Instead, he used the divine blade slash of the Mandarin Duck Blade. A bright full moon instantly cut through the darkness and illuminated the whole stone chamber. The black shadow had already retreated several feet away. There was a small knife mark on his sleeve. His face was solemn. "You are definitely not from the Water Moon sect." "You know the Water Moon sect?" Song Qingshu frowned and thought back to the move he had just used. Suddenly, a thought flashed in his mind. "You are a Tongtian shaman." The black shadow's eyes narrowed, and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. However, he couldn't see through the black shadow, so he didn't dare to act rashly. At the side, Hu Qingtong's eyes widened. Having been enemies with the Mongolians for a long time, she naturally knew who the Tongtian shaman was. As the spiritual leader of the Mongolians, why did he fight with this group of Mongolians? Didn't he just kill Wu Chun? Also, it was said that the Tongtian shaman had the cultivation of a grandmaster. He had the ability to communicate with ghosts and gods. How could this Water Moon Great Sect fight him to a draw? Jin Yang's Chinese weight, the Tongtian shaman mentioned that he wasn't from the Water Moon Great Sect. Thinking back to the situation when he solved the soul suspending ladder, who was this person? "Since you guessed my identity, I can't let you go today." The Tongtian shaman's body shook, and his aura surged. Two black hole-like things appeared in his palms. A black shadow spread out from his feet and quickly spread to the walls. It was like a huge mouth from hell that was about to pounce at Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu hurriedly stopped him. "Cult Master, don't panic. Our goal is actually the same. There is no need to kill each other. The Tong Tian shaman sneered. The same? How do you know what my goal is? Song Qing-shu said, I was a little puzzled before. Although this maze was built by the Gaochang ancient country to deal with the Tang army, after 1,000 years, no mechanism should be working. But when I entered the cave, the traps seemed to be new, and the scarabs in the box couldn't have lived for 1,000 years. Now it seems that it is all the work of the cult master. The Tong Tian shaman snorted and didn't say anything. At the same time, he gathered his strength and didn't attack again. Song Qing-shu continued. We came to find the treasure on behalf of the Khan, but the cult master chose to deal with us. Just now, you killed the patriarch of the Hongjiara tribe, Chun. It can be said that you got rid of the Khan's right-hand man. After thinking about it, it is obvious that the cult master wants to deal with the Khan. I disguised myself as the Water Moon Great Sect and hid beside the Khan. Naturally, I also want to deal with him. All this was thanks to Zhao Min. If she hadn't analyzed the situation in Helen City, he, as an outsider, wouldn't know the intrigue among the Mongolian higher-ups. The Tongtian shaman's eyes narrowed and suddenly laughed. I also know who you are. Oh, I'd like to hear the details. Song Qing-shu's heart skipped a beat. The Tongtian shaman looked at him deeply. Although there are many masters in the world, there are only a few who can tie with me. There's only one person among the younger generation who is good at lightness skill and has a conflict with the Khan. He is the Golden Snake King, Song Qing-shu. Hua Qingtong exclaimed and couldn't help looking at him in surprise. She didn't expect that this person turned out to be Song Qing-shu in disguise. No wonder he took care of her along the way. Thinking of this, she couldn't help blushing. Fortunately, they were in the dark and didn't have to worry about being seen. Song Qing-shu was silent. At their level of cultivation, it was not too difficult to roughly estimate the age of the other party. It was also expected that his identity was guessed. The Tongtian shaman suddenly laughed. Ha, fine. With your identity, you're qualified to cooperate with me. However, today's matter is of great importance, and there can be no leakage. This woman can't be left alive. As he said this, he struck Hua Qingtong. The attack of a grandmaster was very powerful, and she was tied up and unable to resist. She could only watch as the palm of the Tongtian shaman slipped away. Have mercy! Song Qing-shu used his dragon-capturing skill to pull her to his side, dodging the other party's casual palm strike. The Tongtian shaman's eyes narrowed. What? You want to protect her? Song Qing-shu said in a low voice. This woman has led the Wood Table Luan tribe to defeat the Mongolian army several times over the years. She is the target of Temujin's revenge. If you kill her, won't that be exactly what Temujin wants? The Tongtian shaman snorted. Of course I know that, but our identities are very sensitive. We can't let others know. Even if it's a pity to kill her, we still have to kill her. Chapter 2358. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but be stunned when he saw her blushing and bashful expression. He never expected that she would say such a thing. However, he reacted quickly. He knew that she was cooperating with him and giving the Tongtian shaman a reason that he couldn't refute. So he followed her words and said, Yes, she's my woman. I naturally can't let you kill her. At the same time, he secretly admired Hua Qingtong for being the person who led the tribe to fight against the Mongolians. She was really smart and could make such a decision in an instant, even at the expense of her reputation. Hua Qingtong also looked at him with approval. Sure enough, it was easier to cooperate with smart people. Your woman? The Tongtian shaman's expression was extremely strange. No wonder you were so close to her just now. After a pause, he looked at the two of them suspiciously. But as far as I know, Hua Qingtong is the fiancé of Zhang Wuji, the leader of the Ming dynasty, right? Hua Qingtong felt guilty. Before she could think of how to answer, Song Qing-shu had already said, I have a grudge against Zhang Wuji. I have always taken pleasure in stealing his women. Hua Qingtong glared at him angrily, thinking that this person was really shameless. At this moment, his voice sounded in her ears through secret voice sending. It's urgent, so I made up an excuse to fool him. I hope Miss Wood doesn't mind. Is it really just an excuse? Hua Qingtong was deeply doubtful, especially when she thought that Zhang Wuji's fiancés were Zhou Zhuo and Zhao Min. In the end, they had all become his women. A trace of inexplicable meaning flashed in the Tongtian shaman's eyes. If Zhang Wuji hears this, I'm afraid it won't be good. Song Qingshu said, I have never been friends with him. So what if he knows? The Tongtian shaman's eyes returned to calmness. He looked at Hua Qingtong and asked, Are you really his woman? At this point, Hua Qingtong could only grit her teeth and insist, Yes. You don't mind that he approached you to take revenge on Zhang Wuji? The Tongtian shaman continued to ask. He is a very charming man. I like him, and I believe that he likes me deep down. Hua Qingtong cursed Song Qingshu in his heart. Of all the reasons he could have used, he had to use this one. It made him seem especially cheap. Ha ha! Women really change their minds easily. The Tongtian shaman laughed. He no longer looked at Hua Qingtong and said to Song Qingshu, Let's discuss the details of our cooperation. Knowing that he no longer insisted on killing Hua Qingtong, Song Qingshu could not help but heave a sigh of relief. Secmaster, you should have a plan, right? I want to use this incident to drive a wedge between Temujin and the Hongjaira clan, the Tongtian shaman said after a moment of hesitation. With your help, it should be more effective. Song Qingshu nodded. How do you need my help? He had also guessed that this was the reason why the other party had killed Wuchun. The time is not right yet. The Tongtian shaman shook his head and refused to elaborate. When I need your help, I will contact you again in Lin City. That's fine. Song Qingshu did not pursue the matter. What about Wu Sun? Do you want to kill him? No need. If you kill him, it will be difficult for you to report back. The Tongtian shaman said with a faint smile. Song Qingshu was stunned for a moment, but he immediately realized that all the people who came out this time had been wiped out. Now, Wu Chun was dead. If Wu Sun died and he went back alone, everyone would suspect something was wrong. However, he was deep in thought. Would this Tongtian shaman be so kind as to think for him? Or could it be that this old man Wu Sun was with him? After all, one was the leader and the other was the great shaman. They were both in the same unit. All right, I'll leave first. If there is a chance, I will look for you in Lin City. The Tongtian shaman was about to leave. Song Qingshu hurriedly stopped him. May I ask, leader, have you caught anyone else before? They're my friends. Leader, please be merciful. Number 5 said. The Tongtian shaman turned around and looked at him strangely. Those 2 women are also your friends? You are really a human stallion. Song Qingshu was shocked. Why were there 2 of them? However, he remained calm. Leader, you flatter me. Forget it. I will do you a favor. They're in the house over there. You can go and find them yourself. The Tongtian shaman pointed into the distance. Then, his whole body seemed to merge into a mass of darkness. The mass of darkness quickly disappeared into the distance. Song Qingshu was not in a hurry to find our man. Instead, he helped Hua Qingtong up and untied her. Are you really Song Qingshu? Hua Qingtong stared at him throughout the whole process. Her eyes were filled with curiosity. Song Qingshu said impatiently, If I am really that old pervert from the Shui West sect, you will not be able to keep your chastity today. Hua Qingtong's face turned red. She secretly cursed in her heart. You are not much better than the Shui West sect. At the same time, she could not help but poke his cheek with her finger. She exclaimed, Your disguise is amazing. It is simply amazing. Song Qingshu said seriously, Miss Hua, I hope you can keep what happened today a secret, especially the fact that I know disguise. In order to save you today, I have revealed my biggest trump card. Hua Qingtong was extremely touched. She could not help but put on a serious expression. Don't worry. I will not reveal what happened today to anyone else. I will not mention your disguise to anyone else. Song Qingshu looked at her closely. You can't even tell your parents and your fiancé. Hua Qingtong suddenly felt a surge of anger. What kind of person do you think I am? I swear again that if I reveal anything to anyone, I will be abandoned by God and suffer in the Inferno prison forever. This time, Song Qing-shu was a little embarrassed. Actually, you don't have to swear such a vicious oath. The people in the western region believed in God. Swearing in the name of God was the most serious oath. Hu Qingtong ignored him and said in a deep voice, I also want to clarify something. I said that today to deal with the Tongtian wizard. Don't think too much. I don't have those thoughts about you. Song Qing-shu laughed. Miss, you are a heroine. Why would you like a lascivious man like me? Naturally, I won't care. Also, don't go out and talk nonsense. Hu Qingtong's face heated up. Especially what I said just now to discuss Zhang Wuji. It seems that Miss was still cares about this fiancé. Song Qing-shu could not help but tease her. Hu Qingtong said lightly, no matter how much I don't care about him, he is my fiancé in name after all. I have to care about his reputation. Song Qing-shu could not help but move closer to her and ask, by the way, did you mean it when you said that I am very charming and that you like me very much? Get lost. Hu Qingtong walked out with a straight face. Hey, where are you going? Song Qing-shu asked. Hu Qingtong stopped in her tracks. Of course I'm going out. Otherwise, when I see Wu's son later, how are you going to let me go? Song Qing-shu reacted. That's right. If you leave now, you can blame everything on that black shadow. Hu Qingtong continued. After I leave, I will leave with the army. Anyway, most of your people are dead. Song Qing-shu laughed and said, you should be worried about hurting me, right? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.